Meeting of the Medford City Council will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Camuso. Councilor Cavriello. Councilor Knight. Present. Vice President Longo-Kern. Present. Councilor Marks. Present. Councilor Penta. Present. President Del Russo.
Present. 7 members present, none absent. Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to begin the meeting with a council commendation offered by Councilor Knight, I believe. Councilor, do you want to come on up and speak? And if the recipient perhaps will ready herself to come forward. This is for Aggie Tudin, our tree warden. Go ahead, Councilor.
Just a few short weeks ago, our tree warden, Aggie Tudin, was recognized by being selected the Seth H. Swift Tree Warden of the Year, presented by the Massachusetts Tree Wardens and Forestry Association. So I think it's very appropriate that we recognize Aggie for all her hard work and dedication that she does on behalf of the city of Medford. It's quite an honor and a privilege to have the Tree Warden of the Year working here right out of Medford City Hall. So congratulations, Aggie. Please step up. The Medford City Council takes pleasure in awarding this council commendation to Agnes Aggie Tudin, Tree Warden, City of Medford, in recognition of being selected as the Seth H. Swift Tree Warden of the Year, presented by the Massachusetts Tree Wardens and Forestry Association. Signed, Medford City Council President Frederick N. Del Russo, Adam Knight, City Council.
Aggie, come on up and address the world.
Thank you, Council President Del Russo, and thank you, Councilor Knight. And thank you to all the council members. I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with all of you on various tree-related issues around town, and hope we continue to do so. I will say that it was quite shocking and surprising to have received the award. I've had great support from all people in the city, from the mayor who entrusted me with the position, to the various departments in City Hall, especially DPW, and this council. The residents as well deserve a lot of credit because we share stewardship of our trees, and this award wouldn't be possible without all of us working together. So I humbly accept and hope we continue to have great successful things with our trees.
Thanks so much, Aggie. Did any of you, Councilor Cavriello?
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, 4 years ago, I didn't even know we had a tree warden in the city. I'm not going to lie to you. Since then, I've worked very closely with Aggie in a lot of things. Her and I have developed a business program for the trees, for the Buy a Tree, Get a Tree program that we implemented last year. And I just want to commend her for her work that she does. And you call her, she gets back to you within hours.
I think we're waiting on Councilor Camuso next. No? Yes? Councilor Penta, go ahead.
I'm shocked that you didn't know 4 years ago. She's following in the good footsteps of Jesse Jesalonis, who won that for the city. And so we have an excellent tree history here in the city of Medford. You know, so Aggie, continue on, and good luck.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. Go ahead, Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've known Aggie Tudin for a number of years, and you couldn't meet a kinder, gentler person. She takes her job very, very seriously. She is the biggest advocate in this city to maintain and save our shade trees throughout the community, and has done yeoman's work to improve the quality of life in this community. And I would personally like to thank her. I have had a number of dealings As councilors both mentioned, Aggie gets right back to you. She gets you an answer. She gets right out to the site, and she has done exemplary work on behalf of the residents of this community. And I personally want to thank you, Aggie, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Councilor Marks.
Mr. President, Stephanie
Madam.
Burke, 5 Headland Way, Medford. I'd be remiss if I didn't get up and say a few words on Aggie's behalf. I had the privilege of attending the luncheon in her name, and it was quite evident that she's well respected in her industry, as well as in the city of Medford. She has forged such partnerships with different organizations, not only the National Grids and Electric Company, but also some of the outreach from UMass Amherst and Harvard, and she's just formed an amazing amount of contacts and business cooperations that we've seen in the city, and we are lucky people to have her in our community, and she cares so deeply for our trees and for our citizens and for all of us. So congratulations, Aggie, and we're very proud of her.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Item number 15-010. Notice of a public hearing. A public hearing will be held by the Medford City Council in the Howard F. Alden Memorial Auditorium, City Hall, 85 George P. Hassett Drive, Medford, Massachusetts, on Tuesday evening, January 20th, 2015 at 7 p.m. on petitions from Medford Adult Day Health Care Center, LLC, for a special permit to amend the zoning ordinance in accordance with Medford Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 94, City of Medford Zoning Ordinances, Sections 94 to 148D, Table of Use Regulations. Use 7, to operate other institution at the location 101 Mystic Avenue, Medford, Mass., on said site being located in a C2, Commercial 2 zoning district. Petitions and plans may be seen in the office of the city clerk, Medford City Hall, Medford, Mass. Call 781-393-2425 for any accommodations, etc. By order of the Medford City Council, Edward P. Finn, City Clerk. We're opening the public hearing to those in favor. All those in favor, please present yourselves.
Good evening, council members, President Del Russo. I'm Kathleen Desmond with the law firm of Abruzzi and Barclay. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner, Medford Adult Health Daycare. Gennady Itskin and Pearl Magofsky are with me. This is a petition for a special permit to operate an adult daycare center on a portion of the property located at 101 Mystic Ave in Medford.
We will just allow you at this point to allow that present here in favor. Anybody else here in favor? Hearing and seeing none, we're in the middle of a public hearing. We're opening up to those in opposition. Any in opposition? Hearing and seeing none, the President opens this up to debate. Councilor Carviello, Chairman of the Zoning and Licensing, for recommendation.
Mr. President, if you could just explain the type of business you're going to be operating there?
Sure.
So people know?
It's an adult daycare center. It will take care of clients from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. There'll be an activity room, a quiet room, a dining room. There'll be 3 meals. I had presented to the council, it should have been in your package, a letter which describes it, but
just for the
in
viewing
essence,
public to know.
They will be transported to and from the site by vans. There'll be activities scheduled for the clients. There'll be 3 meals served. Any of their health needs will be taken care of. There will be nurses on site. They will also take them to medical appointments if they're off-site from the daycare center, and they do provide some grocery services. They'll take them to buy groceries, and then they can bring them home. It allows them to stay within the community in their home rather than in a residential
Is there a cost for the service? Does their insurance pay for it?
It is paid by insurance primarily, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Carviello. Councilor Camuso.
Thank you, Mr. President. And did you make a motion for approval? I'd like to make a motion for approval on this, Mr. President. This is a long overdue thing in our community. We're proud to have many nursing facilities. But one thing that I like to see as an elected official is give people the opportunity to participate in programs and still maintain ownership and residence in their own homes. And this is going to be another particular case for Medford residents to be able to do that, similar to the Buddy Caholen Center that we have for people with Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as some other smaller establishments in our community. But I think this will be a great addition to the South Medford neighborhood, and this will also spur some economic development. If you have, say, 30 clients and you have to feed 30 people, they're going to be doing grocery shopping in the area, or utilizing local businesses, whether it may be for prescriptions or first aid stuff or things of that nature. So I see this as a win-win to keep a building from being vacant in our community, and I'd like to move approval, Mr. President.
On the motion of approval by Councilor Camuso, Vice President Longo-Kern, and I just need to correct myself. It's Councilor Knight who is chairman of said committee. My apologies.
Thank you, President Del Russo. In your letter, it mentions that Medford Adult Day Healthcare Center has opened in other locations.
That's correct. They have establishments in Natick, Revere, and Lynn. They've been operating, not this particular LLC, they each have their own separate LLC, but Mr. Itzkin and Ms. Rofsky are the managers of those LLCs. So they, under different entities, they have been operating adult daycare centers in Lynn, Revere, and I believe Needham.
Oh, Needham. And those are existing businesses currently?
That's correct.
And what licenses do you hold?
Currently, it's been under the Office of Elder Affairs, but coming this year, we're going to be under the Department of Public Health. Actually, there is a process now that we will have to be licensed. Just waiting for this to be approved.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure you had licensing. And as far as employees, they're all background checks, quarried.
Absolutely.
Okay.
By regulation.
We have to regulate.
Okay. Thank you.
And they also belong to professional associations. That's in my letter as well.
Thank you. Good
Thank
luck.
you. Councilor Penta.
After the words U7 to operate, quote, other institution, what are we talking about?
Well, the situation is that the bylaws are rather outdated in terms of existing, businesses that now exist now as opposed to earlier. So in my letter, I was indicating that in the C2 zone, you do have community adult recreation centers, but there is no specific adult daycare center use in the regulations. So when I went to building for a permit, they classified it as other institution. But in the C2 district, you'll see in my letter, there are a number of uses which are similar to this particular use.
My question, I think, would become curious to the point that since it's not included specifically, if this would need a public advertisement to change the zoning to include it, rather than come under the guise, quote unquote, of other institution. In your other institution, of what you're saying is an adult daycare center, which is not found under an exact terminology as another institution.
Building indicated that in other institutions, that's where it would fall. I mean, other institutions is other institutions at this point. I'm sure there are other uses that fall under that other institution's provision, which...
Well, that's what my concern would be, to give something out that wasn't properly vetted, so to speak, through zoning. I've got no problem going forward with it, but I'd like to get a report back as to whether this terminology, what are you calling it, an adult daycare center? Since it's not found under the terminology of other institution, can be included under the term other institution for the purposes of this particular vote.
So on the motion of approval, Councilor Penta amends this to request a determination.
Legal determination as it relates to whether the zoning for an adult daycare center is legal terminology for other institution, or does in fact a public hearing have to take place to make this become inclusive of other institution?
If I can go to the definitions.
If the clerk can answer that, please.
The zoning administrator determines what the zoning is on anything, and the zoning administrator is the building commissioner, and he's the one to determine that this falls under other institutions right now. So, I mean, on future, if you wanted to create a category for adult. You would have to have your own public hearing to create a category for it. But I mean, as far as going for this particular paper, that's how we classified it right now, is other institutions. So the public hearing is actually correct, but if you want to carve out that becomes a zoning ordinance in itself.
But all fairness to the council and anyone who watching and the petitioners here, I don't have a letter that says that. So if the building commissioner is the, I won't use the terminology, zoning authority to make this inclusive of other institution, I think we should have had a letter that said that, because it's obvious that we're operating other institution by including the terminology adult daycare center, LLC, to be included here. I'm just protecting our interests, but more importantly, I want to make sure that the zoning is appropriate for this, and so nothing comes back and says, wait a minute, it's not included, it's not the way it's supposed to be. I've got no problem going forward with it, but I want that letter that says that this adult daycare center can be constituted as a legal entity under other institution under Use 7.
Thank you. So if we could get that explanation on the matter brought forth by Councilor Penta from the housing, the building inspector, Mr. Moki, as amended by Councilor Penta. Thank you. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a few questions. How is your clientele referred?
The clientele is usually being referred either, it could be a self-referral.
Could you step closer to the microphone, please?
Because it's a community-based service, it could be, the client can be self-referred, it could be referred by the doctor, by the social worker, or by any elderly services, or by the ASAP, which is the Aging Service Provider, Mystic Valley. So it can be from either the case managers there or from the healthcare providers.
Okay. How many clients can you accommodate on a daily average?
We're looking for about 100.
100? And what is your staff to client ratio?
Staff to client ratio now is 1:6 according to the regulations.
1:6 is state regulations?
It's a state regulations, and it's including the medical personnel, which is the nurses, which is 1:12.
1:12, and the program aides.
And the program aides.
Social worker and case managers.
Do you have any, so you have nurses on site? Do you have any nurse practitioners, or?
We don't need a nurse practitioners because people, because they remain in the community, people can stay with their own primary care physician who is signing up on the care plan, which is developed by the adult day healthcare nurses and sent to them on a quarterly basis.
So you dispense medication on site?
If that's a doctor's order.
Is medication kept on site?
Medications are kept on the site. We usually work with the pharmacies who provide the day pack specific to that patient.
So is medication kept overnight?
It could be, but usually it's delivered daily.
So if it's kept overnight, is there?
It's a medical card. It's a special medical card which exists, which is locked.
This is locked and
it's a double locked because usually the nursing station needs to be locked, and then there is a medication card that needs to be locked.
Are there any regulations that govern the security of medications?
There is a regulation that governs that.
And you'll be adhering to all those regulations? Yes. Locally, is the Board of Health oversee your area?
The Board of Health is giving us the clear permit, which is if people with the insulin need to inject themselves and they need help. So they really oversee how do we dispense the insulin. And they also, because we're serving food, they also oversee that.
Right. And have you had a walkthrough yet at the site?
Not yet.
So that hasn't taken place yet?
This is usually the last step. Once everything is in there, that's usually the last step.
Well, I'd like to see our process as the last step and all the papers ahead of time.
I believe there are renovations that are necessary to the space. So at this point, it wouldn't be prepared for a walkthrough by the Department of Health. And without the special permit, there wouldn't be, the benefit of making those ones.
Well, I'm sure they do a walkthrough without our permit. I mean, their walkthrough is not contingent on
Well, they were
whether...
certainly noticed as part of the special permit process.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of build-out to buy the codes on certain numbers of toilets and offices dedicated for the clients, for the employees, et cetera, et cetera. It usually takes about a couple of months, 2-3 months. to do the proper build out.
Okay. You also mentioned that you provide 3 meals.
Yes.
What other activities are done with the people that are staying there for the day?
What are the activities?
Other than eating, what else do they do?
Oh, it's, we have a recreational therapist on staff for 40 hours a week, so that's a full-time position that needs to be created locally. This person needs to be usually either certified or have a bachelor degree and experience working at least 2 years with the elderly and with the geriatric population. There is an activity that provides memory training, that provides the verbal expressions, that the ability, range of motions, and a lot of this is developed in conjunction with a social worker, individually developed in conjunction with a social worker and the nurses, because we have special meetings twice a week. It's an interdisciplinary team that develops plan of care, which is then signed off by the primary care physician. So there are group activities and individual activities for each participant.
So is the actual setup inclusive? Is everyone together, or are they in separate
It depends.
rooms or separate areas?
It depends. There is a room for them to be separate. There is a room for the person to take a rest. There is a quiet room, which is we required to have. We require to have a certain number of recliners, for example, per each participant. And there are classrooms. We provide English classes, book club classes where people can express themselves. We usually employ part-time the music therapist, who comes 2 to 3 times a week to provide some sort of the activity which involves music.
Okay. And just my last question, do you do any outreach at all?
Right now?
Well, once you get started, if
Yeah, of
someone
course.
is a client?
Of course. We will work with the local healthcare centers. We will work with the doctors, and definitely with the Mystic Valley.
Mystic Valley?
Yes.
And
Thank
Mr. Marks, there is a schematic in your package which shows the breakdown of where the rooms and what types of rooms there will be in addition to that. And that should be with your petition.
Thank you, Mr.
Are you all set, Mr.
All set,
Counselor?
thank you.
Thank you for those insightful questions. Councilor Knight?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just a couple questions. You say this is a community-based service. What communities do you service? Medford, Malden, who else? Is there a region? Is it several cities in town?
All the connected towns, we try to keep our clients not far than, I would say, 25 to 30 minutes ride. So the elderly people, not anything more than that, it's not convenient.
Okay. And how many full-time and part-time jobs is this business going to bring to the city?
Usually, we're shooting for the license of about 100 clients. It's altogether full-time and part-time. I anticipate to hire between 25 to 30 employees.
25 to 30? And what's the breakdown in terms of part-time and full-time?
I would say 70-30. 70% is a full-time, and 30% is a part-time.
Okay. And do you have a specific number of slots of your 100 reserved for Medford residents, or are there any type of quota requirements that you might be?
Well, our main goal is that the Medford citizens who live locally in the town.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. On the motion of, Councilor Carviallo.
Thank you. One more question. I'm familiar with the building. What floor are you going to be on in there?
First, we are on the first
You're
floor.
going to take over that whole first floor there?
The ground level.
Yeah, okay. And one more thing. Well, I know you said you take insurance. What about people who don't have insurance?
There is a possibility of the private pay, but we usually
I mean,
don't.
besides private, but people that don't have the ability to pay. Will people get turned away?
Historically, we, in each of our centers, have a certain number of pro bono cases, but this is just that we give back to the community. Sometimes Mystic Valley provide the, or similar organizations find the resources. However, we do provide in each of the centers, we do have several people.
Because I know not all senior health insurances can go to your place and, or go to like places that are similar to yours.
Well, Mass Health covers this, which is a
Yeah,
big
but
insurance.
not everybody's on Mass Health either.
Long-term care insurance covers this. Blue Cross covers this, actually, even as a secondary. And then the private insurances, some of them covers this.
I would like to see some kind of provision for maybe for people who don't have the means to pay.
Okay.
Thank you, Council Caraviallo. The motion of approval by Council Camuso is amended by Councilor Penter and seconded by Councilor Knight. Councilor Penter.
Two quick questions. For people who might be watching, can you tell them where 101 Mr. Gav, what's at 101 Mr. Gav right now?
I was right across from, I believe, VFW. Literally right across.
Okay.
Right near the.
And you indicated you could service 100 clients. Is that on the spot or that during the course of the, how many can you actually have on that location at one time?
About 100.
About 100.
You could have 100 people.
Yeah.
So your 25 to 30 people could handle 100 people at any one time,
Yes.
Yeah,
no matter what their problems might be.
absolutely.
So if anyone has probably somewhat of a psychiatric type of a problem, you can handle that?
Yes, but we do provide service for people with behavioral problems and with mental health problems. However, we are not a psychiatric facility.
But how are you supposed to know that if somebody wants to apply?
Because, well, we do the evaluation. There is a nursing evaluation and there is a certain criteria. Primarily, it's for the people who have problems with the aids of daily living, who would not be able otherwise to stay in the community and would have to go to the nursing homes.
And this is all regulated by state regulation as to the number of employees.
But this is for the
to
purposes of
take.
anyone who might be watching, so they have a better understanding.
So there are limitations then, if I could clarify, limitations or admission criteria for
For
people to
insurance
come in.
purposes. Insurance would cover it, not for us. For insurance, in order for insurance to cover it, there has to be a need with the help of the aids of daily living. But if we have a physician order and it's up to the person's physician to say this person would benefit, a lot of times we take people who otherwise would be prone to isolation.
Very good.
But on a regular basis, we receive a physician summary from the doctor. Based on that, we evaluate our nursing staff, evaluate the patient, and then create a so-called care plan. Based on the care plan, all disciplines in the office act on behalf of it.
There are 3 medical professionals who sees that patient, and it's a nurse from the Mystic Valley, there is a primary care physician, and there is a nurse from the Adult Day Health Center.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Penter, is that
Yep.
helpful? Then on the motion for approval by Councilor Penta, amended by on the motion for approval by Councilor Camuso, amended by Councilor Penta, seconded by Councilor Knight. A roll call has been requested by Councilor Camuso. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Camuso. Yes. Council Caraviallo. Yes. Council Knight. Yes. Vice President Longo-Kern. Yes. Council Marks. Yes. Council Penta. Yes. President Del Russo.
Yes, on the vote, with 7 in favor, none in the negative, the petition passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure serving this town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motions, orders, and resolutions. Offered by Councilor Penta. Be it resolved that Medford dentist, Dr. Lorenzo Lepore, be congratulated for having his most important health and educational piece of legislation passed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts regarding the sterilization and use of musical instruments within our educational school system by students for use. Councilor Penta.
Mr. President, we all know that Dr. Lepore has an extreme interest in musical instruments because he plays one himself. But he started on this adventure a few years ago up at the State House when he had a bill introduced by Representative Paul Donato as it relates to the sterilization of musical instruments in schools. The bill, as reported out and signed by the governor on his last day in office, number 4384, states the following: upon the issuance of a musical wind instrument to a borrowing student attending grades pre-kindergarten through 12 in any public or Commonwealth charter school, the issuing school shall inform the parent or guardian of the student that while the musical wind instrument was sanitized, it may also be sterilized in order to ensure that all microbial life has been eradicated within the instrument. Now, we all know that there was a tremendous amount of concern as it relates to using pieces of instruments that children use in the public schools or charter schools or public school administration. Through Tufts University, its medical school, and a whole host of medical individuals, the Federal Food and Drug Administration became very supportive once they recognized the fact that this has a legitimate concern, where they wrote, quote, "We recognize that with respect to cross-contamination risks and the associated microbiological implications, musical wind instruments are not unlike other contaminated medical dental devices." It states that a valid public health issue consistent with the universal precautions adhered to in the medical dental settings relative to instruments contaminated with bodily fluids. And as such, this agency, which is the FDA, believes that the classification of sterilized musical wind instruments falls under the jurisdiction of the Environmental Protection Agency, and is simply concurring with the conventional medical wisdom that sterilizing items contaminated with body fluids between users is inappropriate. Now, we all know that if you went to a restaurant, it would be absolutely inappropriate to use somebody else's fork, spoon, or drink from their glass, because there are strict sterilization issues. It's the same thing you tell your kids not to use somebody else's toothbrush other than their own. And you can go and you can start making all these analogies as it relates to the misuse or the abuse that somebody might find themselves in because of the fact that something either wasn't sterilized or it wasn't brought to the parental attention for the purposes of letting them know that their children, to be safe, needs to have this stuff sterilized. Restaurants and hospitals follow strict public health rules and regulations and standards. And this was a long journey because it was sort of like virgin in the territories of people who just didn't understand this. Some 25 years ago, you would never think of going to a dentist, so to speak, and he or she would put their fingers in your mouth without gloves. And ever since the fact that they now wear gloves, you would come to your attention immediately if you went to a dentist, male or female, and they decided to stick their finger in your mouth without a sterilized whatever the color might be of the glove that they have to wear. This is a real big issue. This isn't a requirement. This is a voluntarily encounter that a parent will have now with their child who decides to want to use this instrument, or whatever the wind instrument might be. I think it was some 2 to 3 summers ago, there was a story in the Boston Globe that identified some 30,000 pieces of wind instruments being stored in the Boston public schools. And as a result of that, having not been used for years, and as a result of that, and having the microbiological factor come into play, showing that the danger that these kids would have by blowing these instruments is something that basically, again, accelerated not only Dr. Lepori's interest in this, but also the state legislature. And I have to say publicly, if it wasn't for Representative Donato leading the charge in this on Beacon Hill, fighting this and introducing it each and every year for the last, I believe, 4 years up at the State House for the purposes of educating his fellow lawmakers, and having the governor not only accept it when he first came on, he authorized he entertained a commission for the purposes of not only reviewing it, but they wrote a report in 100% support of it. So what I'd like to do, Mr. President, I'd like to invite Dr. Lepori to come here, and I think it would be a great acknowledgement to, again, one of our own. You know, kind of like fortunate, we have it in the medical field, we have it in the legal field. Most recently, we have Victor Garrow, who received a nationwide award for his position of taking on a case for 30 years and defending somebody, proving that the gentleman was innocent and not guilty. And here we have another situation here where we have a renowned dentist here in our community who also happens to be a gentleman who plays a wind instrument, who saw the need for this to happen. He saw the need for parents to be advised and become prepared, and he also saw the fact that an infectious disease, which is at the core of this whole thing, this is a prevention of infectious diseases, could be taking place and be corrected. I think that's a good thing for not only the city of Medford, for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and anyone who wants to believe in the fact that, you know, this is it's a good bill. So with that being said, I move, Mr. President, that Dr. Lepori be invited to come at a future date, and he be duly recognized for having the bill passed. And you know something, you might even want to invite Representative Donato here too, because this wasn't one of those easy bills that you can just get through. A lot of people sometimes couldn't understand it, don't understand the medical part of it, and you have a lot of new reps coming and going. So it took some time for the purposes of having
some opposition.
Yeah, there was.
Unfounded,
but he worked himself through it, and and the legislature finally, and the governor was on board right from the beginning, but the legislature finally saw through it, and it finally got itself passed.
Thank you. That's a beautiful resolution. On the motion for approval by Council Penta, seconded by Council Camuso. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. 15-022, offered by Council Penta. Be it resolved that the mayor's ongoing new parking revenue enhancement program be further discussed regarding inequity and location positions on pay-to-park kiosks, as well as corollary issues associated with this program. Councilor Penta.
Mr. President, last week we had, once again, for the second week in a row, this is now running ourselves into the third week as it relates to this parking program that the mayor has initiated. But I think it's time we get a few issues straight right from the beginning, because I don't want any misrepresentation to go out there before we get into our discussion as it relates to just what the council's position is on this. Councilor Camuso, you made some comments relative earlier that the council on other occasions prior to this voted, I believe you said, for a revenue, for a program. What the council voted for...
Can I, Councilor?
Can I finish my position, please?
Point of information, Mr. President?
We have the councilor asking for a point of information, and if I just might kindly recommend for the efficacy of our deliberations tonight that perhaps we allow a more neutral party to clarify that matter as far as the votes, and maybe then we'll be more satisfied rather than two sides trying to argue contravening points.
I don't think it's a matter of...
Point of information, Councilor Camuso?
And I think it, the gentleman said it a little bit differently than I stated it earlier. All the votes in motions that were put before this Medford City Council, were unanimous votes. Now, I understand what the council is talking about, the final vote that we asked for to come back to this council, but the mayor, under his authority, didn't need to do that. But we are unanimous. We were unanimous on the two votes that were taken, and the two that this council took were one giving the mayor the authority, which was a 7-0 vote, and then the other vote was the night of the RFP or RFQ. I forget exactly what it was, when we went over the language of the contract for a couple hours over here back in, I believe it was March of 2014, and it was a 7-0 vote to report it out of committee.
Thank you, and you've made your point of information, and I'd kindly request that we keep our points of information to a sentence that's rather direct.
Mr. President, continuing on, those votes that the council took, all the council, was for a traffic enforcement, not a revenue enhancement program, and I think the records will verify that. But let's get right to the crux of the matter. On May 20th of this past year, we received a letter from to the president of the council, from the mayor, but basically said that the parking management program, the authority intend to an agreement exceeding 3 years. Dear Mr. President, members of the council, the City of Medford has received proposals from various vendors in response to our request for proposals for a parking management program. It is the intention of the city to enter a 10-year agreement with the successful proposer pursuant to the site and section of the law approved for the contract that exceeds 3 years. Now, following that step further, the mayor indicated that I respectfully request and recommend that your honorable body, pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30, Section B12, approve and authorize the City of Medford to enter into an agreement with the successful proposer for a term signed by the mayor. And at that council meeting on the 20th, those that spoke were Mr. Rumley, Mr. Storella, and Mr. D'Antonio. That resolution was amended by myself at the very end. It states, amended by Council Penta, that the mayor and the preferred vendor meeting with the council to explain the program in depth prior to the final decision. But upon further review of the tape of that particular meeting, that was not the amendment. The amendment was as follows. It was to amend the motion that the council meet before the signing so that we have a complete understanding, so as amended, that having the mayor, whoever the vendor might be, present themselves before the council before the finalization of the contract, So why would the mayor why would somebody want to come here before it was finalized if in fact the mayor was going to sign it? Now, we met on September 10th at a committee of the whole meeting, and at that point in time there was business folks and councilors that pushed back from the contract that was being presented to us at that time, from the people who were there. And at that point in time, the mayor decided to listen to all the things, left the room, and said he would come back with further. And what he came back further was with no vote by the council to discuss what took place by way of an amendment or by way of extras or what have you. As a result of that, there's been some, I guess, misinformation being scuttled out there as it relates to just does where this Medford City Council stand. This Medford City Council had two proposals that took place on that May 20th. On that May 20th, we had A, we bring in one of the three vendors, for which happened to be Republic, and B, we would get a report back if the city was to do it on its own with the financial breakdown. We never had an opportunity to vote on that one way or the other. The council's position, other than the fact saying that the mayor has the authority to sign it, he does have the authority to sign it, but we never had the finalization of what was being presented to us. So what I'm offering here right now is the following. It's a resolution that the Medford City Council take their official position as to whether they support Mayor McGlynn's pay-to-park kiosk revenue enhancement program with the Republic Company from Tennessee. Very simple. Either you're for it or you're against it, so people have a clear understanding of where we all are. You can't one week turn around and say you're for it, and another week you're against it, and I don't want to hear from Council Carviallo calling me up and telling me that if people are saying that I'm saying something about him, or vice versa. It doesn't go that way. My comments have been pretty consistent, and I'll say that in front of anyone that wants to challenge me to what I say. That's the resolution. There it is, Mr. Clerk. I'd like to have the council vote on it, and then we can continue on and talking about it.
Point of information, Councilor Camuso.
So I just have one question for the councilor. So the request for proposal that originally went out that you voted on, you didn't know what was in that contract when you took that vote. Just for the clarification.
Took what vote, Mr. Paul? We didn't have no vote.
We had a vote back in March, I think it was March, when we sat at the committee of the whole and went over the request for proposal before Louise Miller put it out. Before she put it out. The records, Mr. Del Russo, Council President.
Yes, sir.
I think you made a very good solution before. The city clerk is the official record keeper of the community. Please give us the votes, Mr. Clerk, on the meeting for the request for proposal that originally went out, and then for giving the mayor the 10 years authority.
Point of clarification. What the council voted for, 7-0, and I will agree to that, because that's what I voted on.
You voted
to allow him to go forward and to negotiate with Republic.
Councilor,
that's what they wanted to do, and report back to the council before it was finalized for us to review it. That never, ever took place.
There's two different meetings that took place. The council is trying to make it look, because he wants to make it look like he took one vote this way, that way, whatever.
No, we didn't.
There was a 7-0 vote to send out the request for proposal to the vendors.
Yeah, I'm not arguing you with that.
But if you now want to change the whole program,
I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the meeting.
Originally.
I'm talking about the meeting that took place on May 20th.
You know
to
what?
get those three vendors to come back. To get those three vendors to come back, Paul, you had to send a request out.
Councilor, you knew it was in the contract. You know something? For 30
I didn't know it was in
years,
the contract. Neither did you. You didn't even know about it until September 10th, when you got it for the first time.
No.
Yes, you did.
The request for proposal went out back in March. So like I said,
that's a request for proposal. That's not the contract.
With all due respect, I've been watching this for longer than before I was on the council. You for something, then you're against it. You just like to make steam. You never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Wait a minute. The only one making steam right now is you.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
I move the question, Mr. President, please.
This resolution that's presented to you, Councilor
I asked for the clerk.
We're on 022.
Right, and that's coming out of that resolution. That's coming out of that resolution.
023, so if you could present that as a resolution for the next agenda through the city messenger.
No, let's do this one first, and then you can.
We have 022 before us.
I am taking out of my resolution. I'm filing this motion out of my resolution.
So that's an amendment to your resolution.
Yes, if you want to call it amendment.
So then.
So we're going to vote.
So then we're going to dispose of 022 as amended, and it is amended that the Medford City Council take an official position as to whether they support Mayor McGlynn's pay-to-park kiosk revenue enhancement program with the Republic Company from Tennessee. That's an amendment
to item number 15022. Councilor Camuso, did you want to amend
I'd like to
this?
I'd like for the clerk, for once and for all, because I know for a fact Councilor Penta is giving misinformation out there.
That's absolutely
I
not
would
true.
like to.
What is
We'll
it?
allow the
What is it?
clerk
I would like
to
the
give
clerk
clarification.
the clarification on the 2 votes that the Medford City Council took. I would like to do that right now, and then we can put this to sleep, and you won't have to deal with Council
Point of clarification. Wait a minute.
I'm asking for
I am
that.
not arguing that we took the vote. We all took the vote to go out for an RFP, and we all took the vote for the
Can
mayor
we
to
hear
go
the vote,
forward.
Mr. President?
We never took a final vote, as you voted for.
Councilor Penta, Councilor Camuso, the clerk will need time to resolve this by way of research, so
Okay.
that will be an amendment to the motion that's before us.
Listen, if we at this point feel like we would, I don't want to use the word duped, because we knew where we were going somewhat. The contract called that we could put our vote behind, called for kiosks/meters. But at this point, to say that we were totally against it and this and that, up until the final plan that the mayor
Who's
went...
saying that? Nobody's saying that, Paul.
Mr. President...
The resolution's very simple. Either you're for it or
I'm not
against
talking
it.
about your resolution. For or against it, Counselor, it's so convoluted what you're trying to do.
In your mind, it's convoluted.
What you're trying to do here
In your
is-
mind, it's convoluted.
Councilor
I go by
Penta has the
fact.
floor.
Mr. President, I go by fact. I just like to see the records of the original votes and where it took us to this point. Because there is, Councilor Caviello, in conversations with him, has been approached by, what, 4 or 5 people? At least through this community. I know someone that was sitting next to the councilor when he's saying that you can blame
Counselor-
certain councilors for this. Let's
Well, bring
let
that person forward.
Council, they don't like
bring
you.
that-
They don't even want to talk to you.
That's the
So like I said, Mr.
Ask
President,
Councilor
Can we
Caviello the
have,
question.
order here?
You even said you thought you were coming back to take a vote. Did you not say that?
Councilor,
Thank you very much. There it is right there.
he doesn't.
thank you, councilors. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I don't think anyone behind this reel disputes the fact that this council has been pushing for years, and I as one member, for parking enforcement in this community. I don't think anyone disputes that. How we arrived at that and where we are today is due to a plan that the mayor signed. And I don't dispute that either. This is the mayor's plan. He's the one that signed it. Yes, the council did take several votes, but not on the language. And we've heard members of the council already state, like Councilor Knight mentioned today, he's not happy with the 35-cent surcharge. Now, at the time, was that an issue that was brought up, that we discussed, that we talked about, that we voted on? Absolutely not. Councilor Camuso said last week that he's against kiosk and rather it prefers parking meters. Now, was that an issue that we took a vote on? Absolutely not. So it was the length.
It's in the records.
Point of information.
But not in the final plan. I see what you're saying.
We did not take a vote, and Mr. President, if you could indulge me for a moment.
Please, you have the floor, Councilor Marks.
Thank you, because it's important that we get this information out and that the people at home and the people in the audience are aware, Mr. President. And I'm not going to speak for anyone else. I, as one member of the council, never voted to outsource this particular program. If anything, it was myself, Councilor Lund, and Councilor Penta that pushed at the beginning to take this program in-house. We thought we could accomplish this in-house by our own staff.
A new unanimous vote by this council,
Right. Kiosk versus meter. I never took a vote on kiosk versus meter. When I sat on the committee back some 5 years ago, our mission was to look at other communities. And our recommendation back to the mayor was, Mr. Mayor, we looked at other communities. Boston uses a combination of kiosk and meters, and other surrounding communities and their parking lots use kiosk and meters on the streets. We didn't make a declarative recommendation on which way to go. That was the mayor's choice. Then we heard recently about raising business and commuter permit fees for permit parking from 100 to 400. Did anyone behind this railing vote to raise business or commuter permit parking from 100 to 400? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the paid for parking. Who voted behind the railing to have it for 12 hours? I don't know. I didn't vote for it. Did anyone else vote to have it for 12 hours? And now we're hearing the concerns that people would like to see it less to help business out. The $3 surcharge on resident permit parking. Did we vote for that? And then it was just, the company just took it back now, knowing that on a $10 permit parking, resident permit parking, $3 is excessive, and they took it back on their own. We didn't vote for that. The 35-cent surcharge to use the Park Mobile for your payphone. We didn't vote for that. The enforcement versus pay to park. We didn't vote for that, Mr. President. Able to support 30-minute free parking. Did we get a vote on that? We all support that. We've heard it mentioned, whether it's 15 or 30 minutes. Every council said, I'd like to see that. Well, if every council likes to see that, and we're saying that we supported the mayor's proposal, why is it in there? I want to know why it's in there, because we didn't vote on the language. We did not vote on the language. And I can't say it enough, Mr. President. The validation program, that was recently created a couple of weeks ago, and the mayor nixed it shortly after that. The kiosk, where the kiosks are located. Who voted on that behind this railing? We sat down and said where the kiosk could be located? That was under the mayor's plan, not under our vote, Mr. President. Also keeping the appeal process. The one thing that we didn't outsource was the appeal process. And everyone told us, and I know Gwen Blackburn's in the audience, and every city that we went to said, keep the appeal process out of City Hall, keep it away from City Hall. The one thing the mayor kept in City Hall was the appeal process. Did members of the council vote for that to keep it here? Absolutely not, Mr. President. Also, to post signs on trees. Was that a vote of this council? I personally know that it's against the city policy to do so. That wasn't a vote of the Medford City Council. So, Mr. President, I think what we have to be careful here is, you know, the mayor's a big boy. This is the mayor's plan, and he should be able to come forward and say, this is what I thought was best for this community. But to run and hide at a time when the residents of this community need direction, Mr. President, is incomprehensible. It really is, Mr. President, whether he's on vacation or not.
Thank you, Councilor.
Well, just let me finish, Mr. President. Whether he's on vacation or not, Mr. President, he's had ample opportunity to appear before the residents of this community, whether it's a reverse 911 call, whether it's on local access stations, whether it's not having a press conference, which he knows how to do very readily in his office. He has failed to appear before this council and the community and explain his pay for parking program. Now, if he's in favor of it, he should get out there and push for it, Mr. President. But I'm not going to be tagged, Mr. President, because every inch of the way I had questions on this, and questions are still coming up, Mr. President. And for my vote from 5 years ago, back in 2009, along with the committee the mayor appointed, was to provide consistent parking enforcement in this community and not to go to a pay-for-parking program right away. And that was my vote from day one, Mr. President. And this is taken on, as a speaker said earlier, we went from a plan of small nature, just trying to improve enforcement and moving cars along, to a plan now where we're aggressively seeking out people and we're aggressively hurting local business in this community, Mr. President.
As my neighbor so aptly said, we asked for a glass of water and got a tsunami.
Well, so I just want that to, yes, the council did take several votes, Mr. President, but we had no meaningful dialogue or input to any of the language that was always under the mayor's purview. And as we can see, the program being tweaked now is because of the lack of involvement in this community, and we're paying the repercussions now on trying to figure out a program while we already signed a contract. And that's unfortunate.
Thank you, Councilor Marks. Councilor Longo-Kern.
I will yield to Mr. Starella.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Dr. Starella, if you could please kindly
Starella.
state your name and address for the record.
I'll do that. John Starella, 20 Metcalf Street, Medford. If I may, Mr. President, I have here a short review of the process, which has been taking place, by the way, over 1 year. It started, contrary to what Councilor Camuso says, it started in January of 2014. That's 1 year ago. That's when this began. At that time, the request for proposals, the RFP was put out. Now, that was available to all of these councils, and I assume you all read that. That RFP is included in the final contract. So when you saw the RFP, you knew 1 year ago what was going to be in the contract. None of you can deny that. Then in February, the proposals were due. Then in March, the interviews of the 3 selected firms was carried out. But on May 20th, this council gave up its right of control over the mayor by allowing him to go ahead with a 10-year contract. You all voted for that. I was here for that. I advised against it. I said you're giving up your right to the final contract. So actually, this is not solely the mayor's plan. This is also, I hope you all forgive me for saying this, this is also the whole council's plan. The mayor and the council are both responsible for this. The people did not want this. The people wanted they wanted control of the parking, but they did not want to pay for it. The people never wanted a paid plan. Actually, normally the police, if you inquire about this, you'll find out that in the majority of cities throughout the whole nation, the police do all the enforcement. You don't farm it out to another company. And then on September 10th, on May 20th was when the council allowed the mayor to sign a 10-year contract. So, and then that was not made known to the people.
Point of information, Councilor Marks.
Just if I could, because Dr. Strella brings up a lot of great points. And I would just like to ask the doctor a question.
Yes, that's a proper use of a point of information.
Because he's a very astute person and very active with this body, but...
I agree with that.
And I'm glad you do.
No, I'm joking.
As you know, by state law, the mayor cannot enter into a contract over a term of 3 years.
That's correct, as I understand it.
Right. So when the 3 requests for proposals came back, they were all for a term greater than 3 years. So what you're saying to me as a member of the council, at that point, we turn to the mayor and say, you know what, Mr. Mayor, if you can't negotiate a contract within 3 years, go back to the drawing table. That's what you're saying.
That's right. That's true.
Knowing that there's a startup cost, because he outsourced everything, and in this case it was close to $1 million startup cost, there are no companies, John, that would come into the city, the way the mayor wanted to do it, would come into the city for
3 years.
For 3 years.
Of course.
So under your thought was just to go back to the mayor and say, you know what, we're not moving forward. We're not moving forward with this. My thought was at the time, allow the mayor to negotiate, and then we can have say in what the language will be, John. That was my thought. Well, you may say no, but
you don't have that right. You
We
gave
had the
him the
amendment.
right to negotiate for 10 years. That's all you gave.
But as part of that right, as part of that vote we took, we also put a stipulation that the mayor will bring the proposal back to us for a final vote. That was Councilor Penta's resolution, and it was voted on unanimously by the council. The fact that the mayor never came back to us to allow us to make changes and to view the language is not our, maybe it's a legal issue. Maybe it's a legal issue, but that is an amendment that we put on the resolution that allowed him to enter into a multi-year agreement. That is the amendment, John, and I don't know any way of slicing it up.
You're right.
Thank you, Councilor Marks.
Thank you. That was a long point of information.
It is a legal issue, and the mayor acted legally. You gave him the right to do that. He accepted it. He took the risk of going ahead with a 10-year contract, not knowing in advance how this council was going to vote. And yet, something like 6 months later, the council voted to allow the mayor to go into a 10-year contract, which he did. That contract is final, and you cannot amend it legally.
Thank you, Dr. Starella. Councilor Caraviello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Blackman, you want to speak first? Good. I'll yield the floor to you.
Thank you. This is going to be very brief. everything that Councilor Marks says. Oh, my name is
if you
Gwendolyn
could
Blackburn,
kindly-
233 Arlington Street. Everything that Councilor Marks says, I second, because I was on the committee with him, so he knows all that we did. I do want to tell you, though, that I'm around town a lot, and everybody says, what did the city council do to us? They all believe that the city council is responsible for the kiosk. They do believe it. And I say, city council didn't do it, the mayor did it. So they do believe that all of you, you're being held responsible for it. The reason I actually came, because as far as I can tell, we're kind of whistling Dixie here. We're going to lose our businesses in town over these kiosks. And it's really sad that our small businesses cannot afford to stay in business here with people not going into their stores or their shops, whatever it is. But this is something different, and probably that other people have already brought it before you, or you already know it. But I got an email from a senior citizen who, I'm going to read what she said, and she was in Boston at the theater. Afterwards, she came out to Carol's for dinner. It was her first experience with using Medford's Pay to Park. I parked on Salem Street near the Alamo Sandwich Shop across the street from Modern Bakery. Well, was I in for a surprise. The street lamps in Medford Square shed very little light. I could not read the directions to see the face of the keyboard on the front of the kiosk. It was dark. My friend happened to have a flashlight in her purse. We had to use the flashlight to see the keyboard. As we were walking away from the kiosk, a man was walking up to the one we were leaving. He called us back to ask if he could use the flashlight. Check out the street lights in West Medford Square, she's telling me. In the square, is the square well lit? I hope it is better than Medford Square. I don't understand why someone did not pick up the poor lighting in Medford Square. And I just wanted to share that because senior citizens can't see it. I don't plan to use the kiosk. I'll probably get tickets, or I'll go to Arlington or someplace where they don't have them to do my business, their post office over there. You don't have to use kiosks, you use them in the parking lot. So I'll go do business where I can elsewhere. And I hate to do that, but I feel that Medford has really been sold a bill of goods. We're in a situation we're going to lose some of our small businesses, and it's not going to get better. The mayor's going to do what he has already done and not pay attention because he doesn't come out to any meetings, so he can't hear you. But I just wanted to share that. I suppose other people have already brought it up about the poor lighting. I don't know anything about them. Somebody? You did?
Councilor Longo-Kern and Councilor Penta both motioned to have all the lighting replaced, if I remember.
They put those, I guess, LED or whatever they call them, lights all in the square and you can't see? But I haven't even been by one of those kiosks, so I wouldn't know. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say tonight.
Thank you very much, Professor. Councilor Camuso.
No, I wanted to concur with, I think Dr. Starella had a fair assessment of the entire process. If at any point during this, if we felt we didn't like what was in that request for proposal, 4 members of the city council could have voted not to give the mayor the authority. At that point, the process would have stopped, like Councilor Marks said, until he'd come back with something that was palatable that would then give him the authority to go out for the 10 years. So.
Thank you. Councilor Carafiello, point of information, Councilor Penta.
What Councilor Camuso is saying is only 50% true, because the RFP that went out also included the RFP on questions that came back from the 3 vendors. We as a council had no way of knowing what those questions and how they were going to be answered. Councilor Knight rightfully brought up the fact, of the private vendor making the signs when that's a contract issue here with people who work for the city. But the dual part of the story is that we asked for the city to make its presentation if the city, in fact, was going to be the person that was going to put the kiosk or whatever it might be.
Thank you.
And that's the reason why this Medford City Council voted 7-0, and I'm quite sure the clerk, in his minutes that took place in the executive session, will attest to that.
Councilor Carafiello. Yes, Councilor Camuso.
Thank you.
Apologies.
And as I was stating, and Councilor Marks was 100% correct. This all the internal language of the final document was the mayor and the mayor only. We had several recommendations getting us up to that point. I, for one, wanted regular meters. You put a quarter in and that was it. This council supported that unanimously, way back when at one of the early on meetings. So Councilor Marks is correct when he says that. But my point is, I just want everyone to know that, and I'm trying to say this the right way so that Councilor Marks, because I understand what you're saying, people are getting confused. And as the young lady from West Medford stated, Miss Blackburn, I don't know if she left, but as she stated, everyone is saying it's the Medford City Council. And then when certain members of the council are just trying to throw this off on other people and this and that, all the votes that were taken by this council, all the votes that were actually taken by the call of the yeas and nays regarding parking has been unanimous. Now, once the final...
Point of information, Mr. President.
Point of information, Councilor Penta.
Real quick, those votes that were taken were for traffic enforcement, not revenue enhancement. Read all the resolutions.
Like I said, Mr. President, Councilor Penta can say whatever he wants, he can backpedal, but the bottom line is, we saw the request for proposal early in 2014, as Dr. Starella stated. We gave the mayor the authority, knowing what was in that written proposal. So you know what? If we feel like maybe we made a mistake doing it, then let's say that we made a mistake and it's something different than we thought. But to throw the red herring out that 3 members of this council, or 4 members, or 5 members, or 6 members of this council voted one way and other members didn't, it was unanimous, all the votes. And the city clerk's going to give it to us next week because I asked for that in the form of a resolution. So once it's apples to apples, I may take out a full-page ad in the Medford transcript so that the people can see that Councilor Penta is not being forthcoming and truthful 100% on this.
Point of personal privilege.
Yeah, since he mentioned my name, let's get it straight. I don't think the clerk has got to go down. You've already identified the fact that an RFP went out. We're no argument with that. You also identified the fact that the mayor asked to go forward with the one of the 3 vendors. So those are your 2 votes right there. Those are the only 2 votes that this council took on that. But the amendment to the vote to go forward was predicated on bringing in A, the city's cost of what it would be, and B, a finalization before the council, before a contract was signed. Listen, you don't have to.
Mr. President.
All you have to do is watch the tape, ladies and gentlemen. It's as clear as the bell. He can say it any way he wants.
And as I stated, Mr. President, when the councilor wants to do coffee talk banter and blame certain members of this council, the vote, you're running around the town telling...
Point of clarification, Councilor Lungo-Curran.
I feel like we're being repetitive. I'm objecting to this conversation. If we could try to answer some questions, solve some problems.
Thank you, Councilor.
Yes.
So
if we could
moved.
let the people speak.
If I can just finish, I'm going to wrap up.
Councilor Camuso is going to wrap up.
I'm going to wrap it up. But when I have people that are telling me, when Councilor Caviello is having people tell him directly, 4 or 5 people, and other councilors are hearing the same stuff, all these different groups are not making it up that this is what's being said out there. So I just want the truth. The truth will set everybody free. The truth will set us free. So the clerk next week will come back with the documents, and then we'll see in the local newspaper, come election time, if Councilor Penta's words come back to bite him.
Thank you, Councilor Camuso. Councilor Carafiello.
Just
Point
mention
of
my name again.
personal privilege.
If he has a
Councilor
vendetta out for me, why don't you just tell the public that, okay? You're a lame duck counselor, so your words, you can say anything you want about me. It means absolutely nothing, okay? Yeah, well, you can do it all you want in election time,
Thank
okay?
you,
And
Councilor
I'll do all I
Penta.
want during this period. And I know what I'm saying because this does not lie. And if you watch it, Counselor, that doesn't lie.
Thank you. Councilor Caraviallo has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, Dr. Stroll made a good point here. You know, the blame pie is pretty big here, and we all need to take a piece of it. All right? I think if you ask any member of this group here, do we support this plan in the form that is, I'd be shocked if anyone said yes. So I don't know why Councilor Penta needs another vote tonight. I think we're all in agreement that we're not happy with this plan that we have. So, I mean, it's been worked on. It's changing. I mean, Councilor, I know you want to take a...
Point of personal appointment. You mentioned my name.
I didn't mention your name.
You certainly did. You just said Council Pentas.
I said Councilor Penta.
Yeah, it's my resolution. So, could you tell him to please be quiet and let somebody speak? Okay?
Personal privilege?
Rick, not for anything. If everybody was so opposed to it, then according to Councilor Camuso, we should have never ever voted for it. So, you can't have it both
Councilor
ways.
Penta, if you just heard what I said we all need to take a piece of this blame pie.
Why?
Because we did vote to accept this.
No, we didn't.
We did.
You maybe did. I didn't.
We did. We may have gotten duped in what we thought we were going to get.
How do you get duped into something that never came to for a final vote? Tell me that.
I agree with you 100%. We thought the plan was going to come back to us, so we would know further. We didn't get that.
And there's your answer right there.
And like I say, listen, and there's no one around this world that's going to disagree with anything you say there. Okay? So again, that's the truth of the matter.
Tell your friend over there then.
Thank you,
My friend can believe whatever he wants, but
Are you still going, or
I'm still going.
Go
Again, you know, I would doubt that the mayor is going to say, let's just pull the plan and throw it away and write a check for $1 million to the parking company, because that's not happening. So, and again, to send out another vote tonight, you know, on this. Again, I respect where you're coming from, Councilor Penta, but there's no one around this rail that's happy with this parking plan. And if there is a person here, then I'm shocked about it. Okay, so another vote of disapproval, I don't think it's necessary, Councilor Penta.
That's your opinion.
It is my opinion. Again, I think it's a redundant vote to do. And one last thing, certain media groups have challenged my ability to vote for this issue because I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Today, I sought an opinion to the State Ethics Committee whether I am allowed to, because I am a board director. The State Ethics Committee has no problem with me voting on this here. They asked that I do not sign anything as far as the chamber, but anything with this parking or any other issue that the chamber has, they have no problem with me voting on. So I just want to make that clear because there's been a certain media group out there saying that I'm in conflict of interest. So there is.
Question.
Right.
Councilor Caraviallo has the floor.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Then the question is this. As a member of the chamber, did you vote for this or not when the board of directors voted, yes or no?
I supported a parking plan.
You supported the plan that was presented?
I supported the same plan that a parking plan.
To allow them to negotiate.
We supported a parking plan. We didn't have an actual plan in front of us. All we did was support parking.
Parking plan or a parking enforcement?
A parking plan. Okay, that's what we supported.
Councilor.
So again, I'll take my share of the pie on this, and I think everyone else around this rail needs to take their share of the pie. We got duped into a plan we didn't like, and I know there's not one person around this rail that's happy with this plan. So again, I understand where you want to go with this, but I think we're all pretty unanimous on how we feel about this.
Thank you very much, Councilor Caraviallo, for that presentation. Councilor Longo-Kern.
I'll yield. I don't like people to stand.
Okay. Councilor, Mr. Citizen, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mick Thomas.
live at 29 Garfield Ave. I don't know if you guys ever heard the expression, a happy worker is a dangerous worker. You guys are fighting amongst each other. You should be fighting the guy across the hall. Together, not separate. Whatever happened in the past, you should just sweep it under the carpet, forget it, and start new. But you guys got to get together and fight that guy. And to alleviate the problem with the kiosks, I hear a lot of senior citizens asking me questions, and I said, well, how the hell can I answer them? I said, there's been such a lack of information and misinformation about these kiosks, the times, and these, and everything else. What they should do is just program those kiosks when they're not enforceable to have it on the screen. Parking does not, it's not in effect, or the kiosk is not, the parking enforcement is not enforced at this time, after 7 o'clock, because you're confusing a lot of those senior citizens out there. They're feeding a
Point of
stupid thing
information,
after 7
Councilor
o'clock.
Carafiello.
On Sundays.
I brought this with the gentleman, that there's no hours of operation on those kiosks, so
Right.
people don't know when they're in effect and not in effect, and he says
Feasible,
that he can
Rick,
put them on there.
To put, they put it right into the program, just
Well,
like
no, but
that
again,
whole thing, just put it
people
right
don't have
on.
to- So people don't have to walk up to it, they can see on the side of the kiosk, hours of operation, days of operation.
Little
And I-
red
and I
light on
asked the
top
gentleman-
will tell you the whole story, do not feed it.
Right, but it's at least if it's on the side of the machine in large lettering, they'll know rather than having to walk up and push a button. The gentleman from the parking company said that's something they can do, is to put it on both sides, so when you pull up, it's on reflective, even if it's dark, at least it'll show up.
Right, and another point is somebody brought up the lighting in the square. I brought that up last year. You did. I said, clean those lenses and put high-intensity bulbs in there. You don't have to change the light post or anything, just put a transformer in there to take care of the high-intensity lights, and you'll have that square lit up like Fenway Park. Instead of spending a whole bunch of money, you change the head of it. The power's already there and everything.
Point of information,
This
Councilor
morning, I was
Carafiello.
in Dedham Center, and all their lights have the lights, the nice bright white lights that you're talking about, whole square was all lit up. They don't have the yellow or the orange lighting. You're 100% right. I mean, I don't know what the cost
You
of
gotta clean
changing
those
those are.
lenses once in a while too,
But
because
the lenses were all changed this year.
Excuse me?
If I'm not mistaken, I think the lenses were all changed this year. But again, they're orange lights and they just don't throw, but like I say, I was at another town today,
Light bulbs in
bright
there,
white,
you're not
bright
gonna
white
get
lights, they look fabulous.
Okay, but we have to do something about those kiosks, because people are feeding those things when they don't need to. And they're making more money.
Point of clarification on that?
Point of clarification, Councilor Longo-Kern.
From the representative from Republic, are people able to feed the meter, or will the machine reject any payment after 7 p.m. or before
It doesn't
7
reject.
a.m.?
It takes it.
Well, then it should be rejected.
Right, exactly. That's why I said put something on the screen or something that, hours of operation or whatnot, and they shouldn't accept money after 7 o'clock.
Yeah, it shouldn't
Or on a
accept
Sunday,
money.
You
Yeah.
know?
I agree. I think it's
People are afraid of
ripping
getting
people
that
off.
ticket. Because for the lousy dollar that you put in there, they're gonna give you a $15 or $20 ticket.
25.
So we gotta help them out, guys. Like I said before, you already beaten a dead horse because he already signed that contract and we're stuck with it for 10 years. The only thing is you guys can make it easier.
Thank you.
Take the weight off the people's shoulders. And I don't know if you remember the silver paved road to the carriage house?
Sir?
Thank you,
Yes.
sir. Councilor Longo-Kern has the floor next.
Yeah, I want to ask him. Yeah, I want to get to your question you just said.
Do you want a point of information?
Point of information?
Yeah, point of information.
Point of information, Councilor Penta.
There are 2 opt-out positions in this, after 90 days. If this is not working out for either party, there's opt-out provisions, and there's an opt-out provision at the end of the first year. So I just thought I'd let you know, we don't have to live with this for 10 years.
Okay.
And I'm quite sure there's going to be a whole host of legal questions that are going to arise that
Right.
maybe Republic is not going to want to entertain, because maybe they're just going to say, this isn't worth it, so.
Well, everybody's thinking that they're in for 10 years. That's the thing.
Thank
Because
you.
there was no information on it. I still haven't got any information about it at all. I just don't come to the square anymore.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Ed. Councilor Longo, Vice President Longo-Kern.
A few questions, I guess, for our public then. Is there a way to shut the meters off at 7 p.m. and not turn them back on until 7 a.m.?
I don't believe so, but I will confirm for sure. I know we have it programmed so that you can't buy more time than the meter or the posted time allows. I do know that the signage that's posted for the meters does give the times from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and that is reflective. We're going to add some more signage to the side. I'll confirm and report back if they can physically program shut off at a specific time.
If we could have that question answered through the chair, if Republic can shut off the machines from 7 p.m.
Point of information, Councilor Caraviello.
Yeah, in Somerville, their meters shut off. They will not accept money after the whatever particular hour they are. Because I've been there and I've tried to put money in, and I didn't realize at the hour, and it would not accept it after 8 o'clock or whatever time they had.
I just don't. I don't want to answer definitely yes without being sure.
I know it is. Other kiosks do stop. But they will not take any money after the hour or whatever hour is up.
Right. I know these kiosks are in similar cities and they don't shut off. So I'm not 100% sure.
So I'm sure the capability exists to do that.
I'm sure we can figure it out.
And then a few issues were brought to my attention today through a phone call, and I guess it relates to the entire program. But there's certain spots where there's no signage. There's certain spots where there's no kiosks. Is there an internal audit being done of where we need more signage, where we need more kiosks?
Yeah, like I stated earlier, we were put on hold putting any signage out because of a DPW issue and whether we could do it. I finally got clarification literally this morning that we could do it, and we're now going to go back and do it. The DPW said that they don't have the capacity to do it right now. We'd get it done quicker than they would, and as long as we do it between the hours of 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and we're not taking away from overtime opportunities, that the union was on board with that. So I do have a list of about 62 signs that have to go up.
And then it's like there's no kiosk in front of Citizens. From what I understand, in front of Citizens Bank, there's 4 spots. There's no kiosk, so do people have to pay or do they not have to pay?
In Medford Square?
Medford Square in front of Citizens Bank. There's that inlet, 4 spots. There's no kiosk. Do they have to go into the other side of the parking lot, or do they have to cross the street?
If I'm correct, in the first couple are signed as 30-minute pay meter. You'd have to pay the kiosk that is in close proximity. The rest are just limited time enforcement. They don't say pay meter, so you wouldn't actually have to pay a meter. If the signs say pay meter, then you pay the meter for that spot. If they don't say pay meter, then you don't pay the meter.
Well, I was in the parking lot behind CVS, right near Citizens Bank, and I mean, the signage was inadequate. I think it's my opinion.
I agree. Like I said, we got told to stop doing the signage, so I couldn't do anything about it until I was told literally this morning at 7:45 that I could.
And when will the new signs go out?
We're getting back on the horse starting tomorrow to get the signs out there.
I also have questions with Republic. With regards to the resolution, I mean, I agree with Councilor Caraviello in a way. Voting for or against it, I agree that every single councilor has issues and could almost arguably be against the project for certain reasons, but I think things need to be seriously tweaked and concerns need to be hashed out and changes need to be made. I think what we set out to do a year and a half ago when we kept pushing for parking enforcement, it was to get our police department to initiate more parking enforcement for more turnover. What it turned into is what, obviously what the mayor wanted, the kiosks. And I remember Council Marks specifically, even I think Council Camuso mentioned too, why not meters? I mean, we tried to ask questions, they just really fell on deaf ears. But we need to offer some sort of free parking, and if, we need to give the mayor however long it is appropriate, whether that's weeks or months, to make the changes. We need to give the some relief to the businesses. We need 15, 30, maybe even an hour worth of free parking, or we need to lower the rate. Different things need to be thrown around, and the mayor needs to listen loud and clear, realize what's happening in West Medford Square, realize the issues that are in every, I'm sure there's issues in every district, in every one of our squares, and I know some things are being hashed out, some concerns are being taken under advisement and really being worked on. You know, the chief's been active, Republic has been working with the chief, changes are being made, but a big change that needs to be made, and like I said at the committee of the whole meeting, is some sort of free parking. And if the city has to take the hit on the amount of income that we were supposed to bring in, then I think every counselor behind this rail would vote for the city to reduce that amount of income that we're supposed to generate. This wasn't to, I as one counselor did not, necessarily want to make it money on the backs of the consumer and the businesses. The city needs to make some serious changes so that we can see our businesses survive rather than what's going on right now.
Thank you. Thank you. To the chief. Hey, Chief Sacco. I think one thing that I think we could look at doing pretty quick, and it's similar to what Councilor Marks and Councilor Longo said. I'm not so sure the contract, if there's even room for negotiation for total 15 minutes or 30 minutes free. I would love to see it, but realistically, I'm not so sure the contract, that's something we'd be able to achieve through negotiations. I think we might be able to achieve something, though, where from the time of your expiration, you don't actually get a written ticket, you give a 10-minute leeway at the end of it before you get that violation. So, similar to a speeding ticket. When you're out tagging and it's 25 miles an hour, I'm not going to say it out loud, but there's a traditional formula they use if you go above certain thing over, you know what I'm saying. With that being said, I think that's something that could give some instant relief and help out, even if we do it for 6 months, just a 10-minute at the end of when it's about to expire. So if your thing expires 1:25, Republic doesn't write a ticket until 1:36. So you get a 10-minute leeway at the end of it. We're still going to be turning over the parking. I think that would have a good intent as far as turning over parking, not hammering people with tickets, but holding them accountable if they're over the limit by 10 minutes, and then once they hit that next one. Is that something that Republic, and not talking about contractual, but I think that's something that would make more sense. And listen, I have to preface it by I think all of us here would love to see the first 15 minutes or the 30 minutes free, but there's really going to be no way to police that, because it's actually when you put in the money in the kiosk, that's what's actually initiating with all the data and the information technology that you got there at 1 o'clock. So they're not going to know when the 15 minutes started, when it didn't start. You know what I'm saying? I understand that. That's just the way information technology works. But on the other end, that's something fairly easy. That's just a training piece. Is that, I'd like to make a motion that we look for a 10-minute grace period at the end of each thing before a violation is given, at least for a few months, to get people knowledgeable and even, well, actually, I was going to say give those fake ones out like they were giving out, not a fake one, but a $0 one. But I just think that achieves our goal of turning over spots, but it's also holding people accountable with a little breathing room. So I'd like to make that a motion, Mr. President.
So amended by Councilor Camuso that there be a 10-minute grace period.
At the end.
The end?
At the end.
Thank you. And you make the proper point. To initiate anything, to get yourself on record, whether you're going to get charged or not, your plate's got to get in the system.
Exactly. So, and to Republic, to follow up on that, has any cities and towns done something like that you're aware of? Where you guys would just instruct your people not to write the violation for the 10 minutes? Oh, that's not on. Mr. President?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, typically it's a 5-minute grace period. A lot of cities, that's basically what our staff has been instructed to do already. So, and as a matter of operation, Identifying someone that hasn't paid and writing the citation is going to take you a matter of time. So in reality, most people are going to get that grace period. Our staff has also been instructed if they're in the course of writing a parking citation and someone comes up and approaches them, that the owner of the vehicle, that we cancel out of the citation and they walk away. So during the course of writing a citation, up until the moment they hit print on the button, which will take our staff approximately 90 seconds to a minute, 2 minutes to do, if someone walks up and says, that's my car, then we walk away and we don't write the citation. So
I'd like to make the motion for the 10 minutes, and I know now we can initiate, well, we wanted 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. 10 minutes, I think, is reasonable when you're running in real quick, just to get the ball rolling, the conversation started between the mayor and the company.
Point of information, Councilor Penta.
Mr. Nash, question. Tony, I'm sorry. I'm following this conversation as it relates to, I believe he's alluding to using a kiosk, but if I drive down the street and I see a sign that says 2-hour parking, and there's no kiosk, there's nothing, how are you going to know who got there at what time and when?
You're not gonna. That's the whole point.
no, the license plate recognition
Nash, if you
cameras.
could.
So the license plate, LPR camera for short, takes a picture of the car, takes a picture of the license plates, takes the exact GPS coordinate of the vehicle. We've got it set up, we've got a program for 2 hours and 15 minutes. So even though the sign says 2 hours, you actually have 2 hours and 15 minutes in an overtime situation.
That's what any sign is that what you're saying?
No, well,
not a kiosk, a sign.
I understand. There's different. There's 15-minute zones. There's 30-minute zones. There's 1 hour zones, and there's 2 hour zones.
I don't care.
There's now 3 hour zones in the lots. So they all work the same way.
No matter what it is. If I drive down the street and I see a half-hour parking area,
yes,
okay, and there's no kiosk, there's nothing, just a sign says a half hour.
Yes,
how are you going to know what time I got there? Because you're driving around the city doing all this other enforcement.
I won't know what time you got there. I'll know what time we chalked your car when we did get there. So you can get there, and we won't get there for another 10 minutes, and the time starts from the time that we identify that your car is there. So yes, I'm not going to know the second that you pull into the spot, but when we drive by your car, that's when the clock starts ticking.
But Dan, I mean, I could be sitting there for an hour or two before you.
Of course you can.
Eventually get there.
Absolutely.
It's a gamble.
And you can't, unless we put, there's only 1 meter in the world that would be able to do what you've asked us to, what you're asking to do, and no city in the country actually operates that meter right now, because no city will put it in, because that is 100% enforcement of every single car. So there is no parking program in this country that is going to be able to do what you just said, is when I park my car, my 2 hour clock starts ticking right now. It's impossible. So, and that's not a very customer-friendly approach to the program. I mean, you pull in, when we identify the car, that's when the clock starts.
Thank you.
So
Councilor Camuso has the floor.
I'll wrap up on this point. I'd like to make it so that there's a 10-minute grace period at the end of each expired session.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Knight.
I yield the floor to Mr. D'Antonio. I'd like to hear
Councilor Knight yields the floor to Mr. D'Antonio. Please state your name and address for the record.
Anthony D'Antonio, 12 Yale Street in Medford. A couple of points I want to make, and I'm trying not to be redundant on any of them, but I was on the way home this evening, passing the South Medford Square, and I noticed a decrease in the amount of vehicles out in front of the stores from Alexander Avenue to Yale Street. A really big decrease, and usually when I drive by there, they're loaded, they're crowded. Even on my street, there's people there parked. I don't know if Tuesday night is always a busy night down there with the Oasis and with Charlie's, but I got home and I received a phone call, a reverse 911 call from Captain Clementi, indicating that we will have 3 public and police, we're going to have the 3 meetings discussing the parking situation at the Academy, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's going to be at the Academy, I believe. Because I was in a rush to get out, and I was listening to Clementi leave the message there. My point is that a good effort on the part of the Medford Police and trying to do this, but I still say wholeheartedly that the meeting should be taken here, and that the mayor should be here to answer the questions. Nothing gets done. The point doesn't get across unless he is here taking the heat on this. I mean, where's the surprise? Who didn't think this was going to happen after he went mute on the parking proposals put by your committee that you had? nothing was done, then all of a sudden, he comes in with the guillotine, and we got this parking program. Now, you want to raise revenue, you want to put parking meters there. You don't want, this is not a kiosk city unless you put them in the parking lots, and then you don't need to put your license plate in. They can run a piece of paper, and they have a software that says, okay, your goods are 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You want that, you put it on the dashboard.
Oop, sorry about that.
It's all right. The thing that I have a question of is, when this was being negotiated, didn't anybody from the finance department, budget director, or the purchasing department get an idea that this was going up towards $1 million on behalf of the city to put forward this program? I mean, if it's $1 million and nobody's going to take a 3-year contract, then I think it's time for the city to say, okay, thanks for the time you put into this, but this is not for us. We have to find a different solution. There are other solutions out there, and unfortunately, it requires a lot of personnel on the ground, and it also requires a mayor who can get the money from one budget and put into a budget where we need public safety officers, we need DPW people. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done, but this just doesn't, and there's nothing against the Republic Parking System. I mean, they're all good people. They have a bottom line they have to meet, but this is always the way the city runs. The mayor doesn't like what some people do, and he comes up with his own plan, and then he hits Mrs. Murphy's cow in the rear end, opens the barn door, and you guys are all chasing the cow down the street as well as the citizens. And it's a wrong way to run a city. And that's because this charter has not been reviewed for 30 years in the city of Medford. So there's absolute power in there. And to expect anything else, like Charlie Brown always thought that Lucy was going to hold the football when he goes to kick it, but she always moves it. And that's what we have with this mayor. You don't get what we're paying for here. We have to change that. And people have to be made aware of that. You got to stop all this. Well, never mind. Anyway, I hope that the people understand that there are a lot of pros and cons with these things, and I've seen a lot of people having difficulty, with the kiosk. I think it's a hell of a lot easier to put a quarter in a credit card in those things. And one thing I think I heard one of the representatives from Republic say that the information is secure when you put your license plate number in there. And I strongly disagree with that. There is no information that's secure once it goes into the cloud, or it goes into the airways, or it goes into software, because there are companies out there that do this particularly. I could take Mr. Nash up to a place in New Hampshire and show him his own company in a particular data aggregator, and they won't even know that they're being looked at. And I have a feeling that it's not their fault, it's just the way the society is today. But anyway, I really hope that...
Point of information?
Yes, sir. No. To give you an example, Groupon sells coupons for golf memberships and causes special discounts. Well, you can go up there and they can go right into their system and see who's signing the memberships. So what happens is, you manufacture golf clubs. You come to me, I sell you a list of the people that are buying the memberships to the golf course.
Yes, it's in our contract, though. I believe Councilor Penta, I don't know if he stated it, that they cannot use this information.
Oh,
they
no,
can't sell it. They can't.
They won't use it.
Because no, you just said Mr. Nash, his company in Republic in New Hampshire. You said somewhere
No,
has
I
their
said
data.
I could take you to a company in New Hampshire that does this, and they could go into the site. And
All right, because I misunderstood it. I thought you knew something, and I was going to tell you to call the FBI if that was the case, with all the stuff going on today's day and age.
I just think a little more consideration on behalf of the mayor should have been taken for the people in the city of Medford.
I'm sorry, Anthony. I thought you said, I misinterpreted what you said.
No, it's out there. I mean, these are companies. They pay big money for people to come in and do this, to do the software. I mean, they have computers that'll fill this room, and that's all they do. That's how they make their money. You've probably seen emails that you come to your email address that you have no idea how they got there. That's how it happened.
They sell the list.
So, well, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Knight?
Again, I yield the floor to any citizen who would like to speak, Mr. President.
Good evening. How you doing? John Costas, Medford Electronics, 25 Salem Street in Medford. Of course, I'm also a past president of the Chamber of Commerce, but I'm not here for the Chamber of Commerce. I represent some of the people in our block of stores, and yeah, there's I can watch people use the kiosk, and yes, there is issues, especially, you know, older people do have a hard time running the card and so forth. But it has really been, and I wasn't thrilled about the kiosks and the, you know, I would rather see parking enforcement in the square versus kiosks or meters. But we didn't get that. Either way, it's wonderful. Right now, my customers can pull in and, well, some of them take a chance. They won't put a quarter in the meter. They'll run in, run out, and they'll take a chance if they get a ticket or not. But in Medford Square, sometimes it looks like a ghost town because there's so many places to park. You can fly in and fly out. So I know at some of the meetings I've been to, Republic, they're making all kinds of changes to this program. I don't think there's any one program that everybody in this entire city is going to want. I guarantee you if they weren't kiosks or meters and it was enforced parking, you'd have a whole bunch of people saying, why aren't you doing it the right way, you know, and doing it with, you know, the other way, you know, either meter maids or the kiosks. So I don't know how much you can go after this over and over again because it just keeps going on, and nobody's going to be happy at all with this program whatsoever. But it's working for me in Medford Square. If they extend it, there's a few things I'd like to see change, and they're changing them. But I would like to thank, though, the Chamber of Commerce, because I'm just a chamber member. I pay my dues like 300 other people do. But they've been keeping me informed via emails and stuff of what's going on, how's it going on, and what's happening. So I'd like to thank the Chamber for taking that step forward to help me implement a program that not everybody likes, but I think it's here to stay, and I think we're stuck with it. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Marks.
I'll yield, Mr. President.
Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Joe Villione, 59 Garfield Ave, Medford, Mass. I was over at Haynes Square a couple of times, 2 different storefronts, and I talked to both of these store owners, and people are outraged. Sunday, there was a fellow trying to put money in the meter, so I parked my car over near the Eyesight place and Nancy's Salon. I was over there, and I went over and I talked to the fellow, and I said, you don't have to put your money in. I showed him, you know, Monday through Saturday, and he goes, oh, and he was just outraged. He said, you can't read it. I don't want to put my personal information in. I go into the stores, they're all flustered. So, John Costas, you're a great guy. You're a really great guy. You do a great job with the Chevalier, but I strongly disagree with you, man. The people I'm talking to, 100%, except for Mr. White and Mr. Costas, both with the Chamber of Commerce. 100% of the people out there in the community are just really, really outraged, and people want more meetings here. They want to come out and speak. I got some texts. I invited some people. They were here tonight. People want the discussion. So, John, it's going to go on and on because we have to pay that $800 grand and get them out of here. It's a ghost town out there. It's not a vibrant community. The streets are fractured and there's litter everywhere. Why would people want to pay to come to this community?
I yield to the woman who'd like to speak.
My name is Victoria Hunt, and I would just like to add to the fact that it is a ghost town out there, and people are not going to pay to park to go to the small businesses. They're going to keep right on trucking and go right around the little roadie to Arlington. Hunt, H-U-N-T. And that's where they're going to go because there's no meters there, and the business there is booming, and business in Medford is
On the motion?
Motion to leave this open, Mr. President?
We have it so with several amendments. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I think, based upon what we're hearing today, we can all agree that the plan is not perfect. This is not a perfect plan, and we all know that. And I think the reason that there's so much frustration is because of the lack of transparency in the process in establishing this plan, Mr. President. And because the process wasn't open and transparent, now we're in the situation we're in, where there are a lot of questions, and it seems like there's a lot of reaction and reactivity versus being proactive and proactivity. Chief Sacco's done an excellent job, Mr. President, I feel, in addressing the concerns of the general public. He's been out there and he's been working very hard on this. As Councilor Mock said, he right now is the face of this program, and there's no question about it. He's been working far too many hours, in my opinion, on establishing a parking management program and a little less on making sure that the other essential functions of our police department are up and running. I think that this is almost becoming a distraction at this point in time, Mr. President. But I guess the question is, where do we go from here? And what are our options from here? And looking at the situation, you know, we can go forward as the plan's presented. It is what it is. We can work towards trying to get the contract bought out and eliminate the contract, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think that's a reality of the situation. I don't think that that's something we're going to be able to be successful with. However, I think that over the past 3 weeks, we have been very successful at moving this project and this plan towards something that everybody can live with. And, you know, I think that if we're going to make a commitment to parking enforcement and or the parking management plan that's in place, we've seen people from Republic that have been willing to work with us. We've seen the Traffic Commission that's taking our concerns very seriously, Mr. President. So I think that in looking at what our best option is to continue the discussion, to continue the dialogue, to keep this issue here at the table, to keep the Committee of the Whole open, so that we can continue to make changes to the existing plan, so that we can have a successful downtown. And when I look at the plan, I think that there are some other areas that we need to look at, Mr. President. And if we want to make this work, we need to take a look at the comprehensive zoning that we have in our downtown business areas to ensure that we're attracting sustainable businesses based upon the zoning regulations and ordinances that we have in place right now. I also think it's important that because this is a parking management plan, it might be very suitable for us to take a look at what we can do to take cars off the road and to improve pedestrian-oriented transit and multimodal transportation down in that business district, Mr. President. So I think the proper course of action for us to move forward at this point in time would be to continue this discussion, to talk about what changes that we can continue to make. We've been very successful over the past 3 weeks in addressing the concerns that have been brought to us. Thankfully, the people from Republic and the chief have been willing to work with us and have been very, very patient in addressing our concerns. And I think that we've been patient because of the frustrations and the lack of open, transparent process that's been in place. We need to ask the residents to be patient because we're getting responses. We're moving in the right direction, Mr. President. So I think, you know, based upon the options that we have here before us, it's in our best interest to keep the paper before the council, to keep it open and to continue the dialogue and continue the conversation.
Thank you. On that motion, Councilor, if I can from the chair state that we have within this motion, which is before us, item number 1522. We have a resolution that calls for ongoing discussion. You've called for ongoing discussion, yet within it we have it amended to, which will require action, a referendum on the plan that really, quite frankly, as I see it, as the chairman, to be highly ontologically challenged. I think that we also have a amendment by Councilor Camuso for a ruling on the content of the votes by the city clerk, which was also at my recommendation for the clerk's impartiality on the matter. Mr. Clerk, if you could also share with us what else you have in hand.
We have an amendment from Councilor Kern, let me see, on if the machines can be shut down, or the kiosk machines be shut down at the closing period.
Very good.
Yeah.
So that they don't accept anything at, and on Sunday, so they don't accept money on those times. And also, Councilor Camuso had before us the matter of that there be a 10-minute grace period at the end of the paid-for period in the kiosk, that at the termination, so if somebody paid for a half hour of parking, that an additional 10 minutes be granted to them at the termination of that half hour for free.
Before they get before they get a ticket.
Before they get a ticket. So with all those amendments, there was 30-minute free parking came from who?
Councilor Marks.
My apologies. Councilor Marks offered 30 minutes free parking. So, so we have these 5 amendments that require action while we're asking for the main motion to stay fluid. So I'm wondering if a councilor would like to separate, make a motion to separate all these issues so we can
Motion to sever.
sever. Councilor Penta.
Why would you want to sever it? Why don't you just include it? Because when you have the discussion next week, you'll have your answers. And
Your one asked to keep the thing opened,
right,
and the others all require action to be acted upon. So you
Well, it's
can't
the same-
keep something open and ongoing while at the same time
well,
ask
all
for
you're
action
keeping
on it.
open is the conversations you're going to be able to have. That's what the resolution would say. So I would be willing to
That doesn't make sense to me, Councilor.
Well, why doesn't it? I have some amendments that I'd like to put forward.
Well, then this will be tremendously amended then.
Well, whether it's amended or not, what difference does it make? It's part of the ongoing discussion, Fred. That's all that it
Yes.
is.
What I'm saying is that these amendments can't continue within an ongoing discussion. They need to be acted upon as separate motions.
Each one of them is going to be a separate motion?
Should they not be, Councilor Longo-Kern, Madam Vice
just put them all
President?
together.
Would you
All
concur?
together, but it's counterproductive to Councilor Penta's resolve to vote for or against the program.
Exactly.
I
How
think
do you
that
vote
needs
against
to
it?
be. I think that needs to be voted on at a later time when maybe none of these changes are getting implemented.
Very good.
Yes,
That's a
this
great
ma-
point.
Hopefully the
So if
mayor
you
hears
could-
us loud and clear, and we won't have to vote on that.
So the motion that you've brought to us for a referendum on this program, Councilor, would you kindly withdraw that motion?
No, just table it until you get the answer.
On the motion to table the amendment?
Until
An
Mr.
amendment
President,
can't be tabled.
Mr. President,
Councilor Camuso.
Councilor Knight brought this up in the past too. If something's going to be under suspension, every member of this council should have the courtesy of at least seeing it and signing off on it.
This wasn't under
Prior-
suspension, Paul.
No, the other paper that you just handed to him.
It was an
No,
amendment. We
that's
all
an
voted.
amendment.
He's
We
offering that
do
as
this
an
all the
amendment now.
time.
I
Robert's
underst-
Rules of Law
I
allow
understand the
that.
amendment, but did he give you, I thought it was an original, he said it was
Originally, he said it was-
15-032.
He presented it to me as a motion separate from this. Him giving its own number.
Hence my
and not-
point.
Not the clerk giving it a number.
That's my
So
point, Mr. President.
my point is that I'm asking that that amendment be withdrawn.
Okay, and that was my point, Mr. President, because when anything goes into suspension from any members of these council, any member of the council, we all see it, we initial it, and then give it in.
It wasn't a suspension,
When it was
Paul.
given a number earlier, one would assume that it was under suspension and that we didn't sign off on it.
It couldn't be accepted as a.
Exactly. So
we've
you see what I was saying?
We've had
It's-
many
It's the
resolutions.
job of the clerk
that-
to give
We've had many
a
resolutions
motion a
that
number.
people, we've had many
So,
resolutions.
like I said,
Paul,
just moving forward, anything under suspension, I think we should all
Paul,
see.
we've had many resolutions that are amended on the floor.
Amended on the floor, but not given to the city clerk with
As
a number.
I said, he read my resolution,
With a
and
number
then I
on it.
said, as amended.
So
As
we've
amended, I handed it to
accepted
him.
it as an amendment.
Originally, though,
My
as-
question
confusing when you
is.
amended your own resolution, I think, is what confused them,
Yes,
because you know what I mean?
right.
Say it,
But do we leave that tabled, or do we have to withdraw it when we're acting on the rest of the?
Let's withdraw it and
motions?
see how the answers.
Before we go any further, before we get to that, I want to go back to the amendments that we're discussing here right now. I want to go to indicate that on, is Mr. Nash, you're still there? Dan? Are the cars, the two cars that you have right now, are they lettered yet properly? Are they done? Pardon me? Nope. They aren't. Okay. And have they been used recently for the purposes of issuing tickets?
Nope.
Okay. And when we met, I believe it was on this past Friday, you indicated that the cars would not be used for that particular purpose. They would just be driving your drivers around, and they would be getting out and doing what they're doing.
Correct. The cameras are disengaged and the computers are off.
Okay. I move that the dates of January 15th and January 16th, any tickets issued.
You amend the.
Amend it further with another amendment.
Further amended by Councilor Penta that.
The tickets issued on the January 15th and especially January 15th, where the cars were unlicensed, unregistered, and unchecked and unleaded, not be waived. And same thing for the 16th. And also, number 2.
There was no clarity into what you just said, Councilor.
Yes, you can't understand it? And the 16th, the same for the 15th and the 16th. Any tickets that they issued be invalid because they were used in a car that wasn't properly marked, insured, registered, and inspected.
That's the third time he said that the cars were not insured or registered. And
They weren't insured. When were they insured?
They were. I can get you the documentation if you
What
want.
day were they insured, Dan?
I don't have that documentation.
You don't have it. But it wasn't
what you're
insured on the
saying-
15th.
Basically, what you're saying is that we drove around the city with uninsured vehicles, which is
You
just
had
not
a
true.
cardboard plate that
It's
said
not
Tennessee
true.
on the back of a white car that did not have a Massachusetts registration, it wasn't inspected, and it wasn't lettered and identified. That's what the contract says you were supposed to do. You had 90 days to do it.
The contract said that we had to mark the vehicles, and yes.
Therefore, with that being said, tickets given on those 2 days, and they're still unlettered vehicles, but I understand what he's doing, they're just driving the people around, so the tickets that were given on those 2 days be waived. That's all.
And just to
Those
clarify,
vehicles,
to
those
clarify,
tickets that came off of-
every single citation that is issued
No,
is
that came
issued-
off of those vehicles. That's
Every
Councilor
single
Penta,
citation.
Can you allow the man to answer your question, please?
Go ahead.
Every single citation,
No.
no matter when, whether it was January 15th or next January 15th.
No, January 15th
Can
and
I-
16th.
Can I please
Can
answer
he
the...
finish,
Go ahead.
please?
Every single ticket, whether it was this January 15th or next January 15th, is issued by an officer on foot. The vehicles do not issue citations. They identify people that are in violation. The officers get out of the vehicle. The officers then do a double check through the handheld unit, and every single ticket is issued
But you had to
on
use that
foot.
vehicle, Dan, to get to where you were going. If the chief of police drove down the street and saw my car that was uninspected, unregistered, and didn't have a Massachusetts plate on it for the purposes of, and unleaded, he would stop me and
They
give
would
me a
just-
ticket.
They
You didn't
would-
have it. You didn't have those.
But I'm just clarifying, because you're making it seem that the vehicles themselves issue citations, and they don't.
Well, you would have not been able to get the information, Dan, from the orange things on top of those vehicles from the guys driving down the street. Correct?
I don't need the cameras to get the same information.
Well,
So what you're saying is that the technology that your firm employs to affect the parking enforcement plan is not advanced enough that the machines themselves issue citations. So it
No, I
still
mean, you-
requires the use of a human being in doing that.
No. No.
Yes and no.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you can, I mean, in order to issue the citation from the vehicle, you'd have to mail the citation to the house, and you can't do that. You have to put the citation on the windshield, and a vehicle can't put a citation on a windshield. We have two means to track every single citation. First, the camera identifies a potential citation, and then the officer, the parking enforcement officer, gets out of the vehicle and does a double check through the handheld to verify it. So there's two means to do the identification of any violation.
But Dan, he would have never been able to do whatever those violations were on that, at least on the 15th.
Absolutely,
On the
we could
15th,
have.
if he didn't have, if the car was properly, like it was supposed to be. And all,
We could have.
Point of information, Councilor Marks.
Just if I could, I hear what Councilor Penta is stating, but from what we heard, the infractions dealt with parking in handicap spot, parking in front of a hydrant, and I, as one member of the council, I don't care how they got the information, I want them to issue tickets. That's what they're there for, to issue tickets, and especially for infractions of parking in front of a hydrant, which is a danger in case of a fire, or parking in a handicapped spot, Mr. President. So I hear what Councilor Penta is stating, but I don't think we should be waiving any tickets for people that are in violation of parking in those particular spots, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor Marks.
If I will void any citation on the 15th for overtime parking.
For overtime parking?
I think there was 5 citations issued
All right.
that day, and I will void those 5 citations out of the system for anyone that was overtime. But the bus stops and the handicaps and the crosswalks will keep.
On that matter, how can you override something if, without coming to City Hall? You can do that where you're at?
Well, with your permission, I'll do that.
Okay.
I don't know which way you
I
want
hope
me
the
to do it,
council
and then you
agrees
don't
to
want me
give him
do it,
permission
so.
to void the tickets, okay?
We've been.
The council is not authorized to do so.
Okay.
But he
Well,
can
then-
do it. Second thing, on the tickets, is there any way instead of having a paper ticket, you can put a colored ticket on there?
Yes, that's already been brought up, and we're.
No, but I just want to know, because it's not part of the resolution. Not part of
Yes,
the amendment.
there's
I'd like
a
to make it part of the
there are a
amendment.
couple solutions to that.
So
If
is
I may-
that part of the amendment, Councilor
Yeah, I'd like to
Penta?
amend it, that the violations be color-coded, so, and not in paper.
Councilor
And not on paper.
Camuso.
This was already brought up earlier as a non-amendment resolution, as an amendment by myself. It was, I said the ticket
talked
looks like
about it.
Stop and Shop. And the second question following up, people that actually get a violation, now these, the people have been getting have been warnings. Will they actually get an envelope to mail it in as well? Other communities get an envelope, pre-addressed.
That was not the original plan, but we could look into that.
I think you should, because
I mean,
that's
because the communities are split. I mean, Hartford, Connecticut, Albany, New York, all these cities, they don't issue envelopes, they just issue your citation on the windshield.
Well,
Other communities do.
Where are people going to be mailing them? To a lockbox out of state somewhere, or right to Medford Main Street, or?
They'd be mailing up to our office.
Okay.
Or they could pay them online.
I think it's a lot, I think
Well,
that-
one of the possible solutions to help with the question about the color is to use an envelope that is colored and marked up. So
Yeah, that's true, too. Use an orange envelope with a white ticket.
So that could be one potential solution. That solves both problems.
Last 2 points, to get it corrected, because this is the question that was asked. Once you give a ticket and somebody appeals the ticket, do they have to pay the ticket first, or do they have the appeal and after the appeal has taken place?
No, they do not have to pay the ticket first.
They do not have to pay the ticket in advance. And the last thing, Chief, did you realize on the ticket they have the word officer with why are they using the word officer? Can that word be changed?
Well, I haven't looked at any of the tickets. I haven't seen the tickets.
It says officer on
but
it.
the fact of the matter is, they are referred to as parking control officers, parking enforcement officers,
Well,
civilian
that gives
parking control
officer,
officers.
anyone see the words officer, it gives a representation of a police officer, and they're not. They're not supposed to give anything that represents the city of Medford Fire, Police, or any type of
I'm
representation.
sure that'll be modified. Then I'm sure that's a simple solution.
I
But,
move that- I
but
move
going back on the vehicle issue, those vehicles were not unregistered and they were not uninsured. Those vehicles were legally on the roadway. They had temporary.
Tennessee,
They
from
had
Tennessee.
temporary Tennessee plates,
Yeah.
which is recognized in the state of Massachusetts for that temporary period. They immediately went to the registry and registered those vehicles. They have orange lights on order to be installed on the roofs of the vehicles, and they are going to be leaded.
Chief.
I know that the urge here is to throw the program out.
No.
I think just going at the vehicle is being
No,
a bit much.
I think the urge is to have, after 90 days, they should have been prepared for this. That's the
Well, they
urge.
didn't own the vehicles for 90 days.
Well, they had them
They
30
didn't have
days.
an office for 90 days.
Chief,
You know,
they
this
had
is
90,
all-
they had 90
all-
days to get, they said it in their contract, 90 days. Fred. 90 days. I amend the motion that the word officer be replaced on the tickets.
As amended by Councilor Penta, that the word officer be amended. Councilor, are you through with your
And also
amendments?
that the ticket, if somebody gets a ticket, it's color-coded, and what'd you say, with the return address on, with the return address envelope?
Colored return address envelope.
Mr. President, if I may, just in wrapping this up, Chief
Please.
Sackel, I would be remiss, and I think all of us, while we're not thoroughly happy the way things are been rolled out, but there's been one person that is a city employee that has been doing a great job with this, and that's the gentleman at the podium. I've met him on several occasions over the past 2 weeks. He actually got in his vehicle, come out, met this man right here, Mr. President. And I can appreciate when we say that we want him doing chief of police business, but for taking on the additional responsibility, Chief, we couldn't have had a better person in this city doing it. Your personality, your knowledge of the law, and just being responsive to people. Because for the chief, for our police chief, and this came up earlier in the meeting, and I wasn't going to let him go home tonight without bringing this up. Last week, this man personally went down. Did you pay the meter, though, when you went to every square?
You bet I
Every
did.
square.
I have the receipts to show, too.
He went every square. The chief went to every single square that have these kiosks, walked around all the businesses, answered questions, and he didn't need to do that. You know what?
And he took
Chief,
the
you're
lead on all the hard questions.
Absolutely. And you know what?
I haven't finished the square, Medford Square yet, so there are some businesses.
There is some businesses, but like I said, you know what? He's been the point person, and we couldn't have a better department head doing it. And thank you, Chief. And this will all quiet down once, as far as the rollout, and it's way above your pay grade. It could have went a little bit more seamless. I think there could have been a lot of more information getting out there, but you're doing an outstanding job, and I'm speaking for all the councilors. Even Councilor Penta and I bet you're in agreement with this 180%, right, Councilor?
Hooray.
He says he don't answer.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But, you know, this does fall. I know someone said that, you know, this really isn't chiefly work, but it all falls under the same umbrella. So the police department's responsible as well. So
Let's
Answer the
wrap it
question.
up,
I want to answer the
councilors.
question. Wait a minute, you want to rush? Relax. This is too important of an issue, all right? Number one, after 7 o'clock at night, Dan, you indicated that you're going to have a special team go out after 7 o'clock at night. Where does it say that in the contract?
Well, just so that you know, I mean, that was part of the discussion, because obviously if we're not giving out stickers for resident parking, the police department is going to have a great deal of difficulty identifying those vehicles on those streets that are not resident parking, don't have the permit. So until such time as we have the technology available to us, Republic Parking said that they would be glad to stagger hours. You know, maybe someone will work the early part of the evening, maybe they'll work from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. The goal is so that people don't have to call with the complaints, that we try to get the compliance. So they can do whatever they want with their personnel. It's outside of us. It's outside. I don't think there's anything locked in the contract about what, you know, when they're going to work or how many. Whatever it takes to accomplish the goal, they're willing to work with us. We're going to be short-staffed. Technology-wise, we're lacking. They have it. They're registering everyone for those permit parking streets. It's a natural fit. I wouldn't argue with the fact that they're willing to do it.
I understand the 7 to 7, but I don't understand how they can work after 7. I mean, and as far as their financial windfall that comes out of all of that, number one. And number two, how are you going to read in the dark? How are they going to read number plates in the dark?
The license plate readers pick them up no matter what time of day it is. Dark,
But when
basically infrared.
cars are parked close together, Chief, what are they going to get out of the car?
The license plate reader reads those plates. They can read them from angles. You know, that I've seen how those things work, and you know, you'd be amazed. I mean, unless the bumpers are back to back, and you couldn't even see the plate even if you got out and looked on your own. That may be the only reason there'd be a difficulty there.
I think it was mentioned at the committee of the whole meeting that it cost about $30,000. Is that what it is for those things to be on top of those cars? Is that what it is, Dan?
Theirs may be more expensive, but what we had, the unit that we presently have is about 30,000 when we bought it.
Retail cost on a unit is $60,000, but with
60,000 retail
with our discount
and is that installed?
Yes, and that's just the unit. That's not the vehicle.
Okay. Well, since we have approximately $7 million in free cash, I'm going to move that the city's police department be afforded an opportunity to investigate what the cost would be to install them in your cruisers.
Just so you know, one of the earlier meetings, that was one of the things that the mayor and Mrs. Burke had brought up to make sure.
Well, I'm glad you know that, because we have to read it in the newspaper to find out
But
what's
no,
going
I mean,
on.
it was brought up at a meeting, and it was discussed, and actually Louise Miller was asked to research it, so it'll be coming. But it does take time for those things to happen, so in the interim, Republic's going to help us out, and hopefully we satisfy the
In the effort to eliminate
needs.
redundancy, why don't we withdraw that amendment?
No, I'm going to put it on there as an amendment.
But, you know, I just want to say that, you know, and I appreciate the comments, but the fact of the matter is we're all in this together. I mean, we all love the city that we live in and we work in.
Maybe we all
This is
didn't
going
ask
to
for
take,
this.
this will take a while. I mean, this is probably going to take a little while to iron out, but I think, based on some of the comments I heard, and I don't think they were just saying it because I was there, they realized it was coming at some point. It's just a shock to the system. It's a tough time of year, January. All the bills are coming in from Christmas. It's just business is off anyway in January, and it's, you know, this isn't helping things, but it will improve, and most people have been pretty positive about it.
Thank you, my chief. Councilor Penta, are you satisfied with your amendments?
Yes.
Thank you. Ma'am, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Jean Martin, 10 Cummings Street, and I'm going to say two nice things about this program, and then that'll set me off from going off. First of all, one of the good things about this program is that it saves our police from becoming, in other words, for other better words, meter maids, which is a waste of their time, which satisfies one of my requirements for parking enforcement. So that's one good thing. I'm glad to see that. And it got the second thing is it got the commuters from other cities from stopping and parking in the city. So those are my two compliments to this program. Everything else is a complete, if we didn't have a 10-year contract with these folks, we would scrap this whole thing and start fresh. I mean, the amount of changes and everything else. And I have to say, with all due respect to the police chief. It is not his job to set policy, which he is manipulating and working with, not manipulating, that's a bad word, but he is working and tweaking policy that the mayor should be here on. That's what's getting my blood pressure up. The mayor should be here taking his own heat for his own program. He's making the chief of police take the heat, waste the chief's time when he should be doing other things in this city. That's what got my blood up today. And, you know, I have a whole bunch of things. But the other thing is, about Mr. Marks, he was on that committee or commission or whatever it was for the parking enforcement. Total insult to all the time that they spent on that committee. And I know that the police chief is paid to be on it because he's paid as a city employee. But there were citizens that were on that committee that spent time on that parking enforcement program. Had that been recognized by the police chief, by the mayor, we wouldn't be in this position. And I don't have anything against the outside vendor, but because we're in this contract now, we're signed into it. And it just, all of these issues need to be brought up next week when the mayor is in town and sitting here taking the heat for his own program. Because it's his and it's yours, you know, for whatever. You can argue about how much responsibility is the council's, but it is also, it is primarily, the signature is by the mayor. He has the only authority to tweak it, change it, put a stop sign here, and he's the ultimate authority for where there's going to be a parking meter or whatever. And the kiosks, don't even get me started on the kiosks, because that has caused more problems than if you had just put meters in, quarter-fed meters. You know, whether you agree with it or not and put in 2-well parking and then have people watch it, everybody understands a meter. A simple, simple, simple meter. Everybody understands it, and I just have to say that. So, I think we should have went by the recommendations of the Parking Commission. I think it should have been reconsidered. But again, the two things, so that my blood pressure comes down. One, the police are not wasting their time, although the police chief is now wasting his time on this when it should be the mayor that's taking the heat for his own program. He is the enforcement of policy. He is not the signature on the policy. He is not the guy that makes the policy. The mayor is the guy that makes the policy. And number two, it got the commuter traffic off of the streets, which was the second good thing about this policy. So with that, I'll shut up. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. On the motion, do we have any motions for separation? Oh, ma'am. My apologies.
Thank you.
Your name and address for the record.
Mary Ann Ashcraft, 77 Fountain Street. I was here last week. I actually got a call from a businessman in Medford Square. What's happening? Are we in the business of putting people out of business? I understand we've got the kiosks. We may have to live with them. I'd like to see them opt out of them. What happens when the bridge starts construction? We have people going out of business now. We're going to have more people. Exactly. And, you know, I've been here my whole life, like I said. I know people, I don't expect to hear from people that own businesses. They call me and say, what's going on? And I said, call the mayor. Don't blame the city council. I myself haven't been in the square. I don't intend to be in the square. I've changed my prescriptions from CVS. I'm going somewhere else. I see people going out of business. I don't think it's going to work. Can the mayor opt out of this? We have 3 months. We have a year to opt out of it. Also, as I have said to some council members, not in this surrounding, the mayor had plans drawn up by an architectural firm in Cambridge that cost a lot of money, because I know the architect that drew up the plans. What happened? He said, we can't afford it. But we can afford this. I don't understand it. I'm not happy with it. Probably what I say doesn't mean it will make any difference. But I do have a friend that's a dentist. They're taking her bridge, her parking lot, to reconstruct the Craddock Bridge. Patients complain now because I've worked with Dr. Zietzer and I've worked in the office for many years. Dr. Zietzer opened that practice in 1971, I believe. They have no parking now to come to their dental appointments. And certainly when there's major construction, she's not going to be seeing those patients that come from quite a distance, that have been coming from that distance for 30, 40 years. I can't say any more about it. It's terrible, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. On the motion, do we have motions to sever, motions to withdraw, amendments? Thank you. Motion to sever all of the amendments from the main motion? Just the one?
The one that says for or against the project.
Motion to sever the one for or against the project. His withdrawing it for a week.
Just automatically put it on for next Tuesday's agenda. It's fine, it's fine. I wouldn't even vote for all of them together.
Put it on the agenda. Do you have that? Do you have another copy of that? You have the one that you numbered. Well, that's the clerk will assign it a number.
That number's gone already.
Well, refile it as a resolution. So that is withdrawn. All those in favor? All those opposed? So we have before us the motion to withdraw sever. It's withdrawn. So we have the main motion to continue this discussion as amended by Councilors Camuso, Marks, Penta, and Lungo-Kern. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. Petitions, presentations, and similar matters. 1520, petition by Jean Martin, 10 Cummings Street, Medford, to discuss Haynes Square redevelopment. Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Jean Martin, 10 Cummings Street. Thank you very much for letting me speak here tonight. Haynes Square is a great square, and it has great potential to thrive, and yet left neglected, and without proper advocacy from the city as a whole. If you would just take a good look at the architecture, you would see what I see, the base for a wonderful meeting place for the citizens of Medford to commune, as well as purchase goods and services. To revitalize the square, we need to have joint meetings between the state officials because of Route 60, Route 28, and the MBTA bus barns, local politicians, especially the mayor, and small business community, all need to get together to have a good, wholesome plan for the whole unit. It has to be taken as a whole area and not just piecemeal. The best assets the square has are Dempsey's Restaurant, without a doubt, the best combination of community with its breakfast menu. I watch people all have coffee, commune, talk, families, friends. It's a social place as well as a place to receive, it's a food place. So it's absolutely the cornerstone in its proximity to the square, how it's central. It's one of the central eye catches of the square, and it's absolutely one of the anchors of the square. But again, the sidewalk outside of it has potential. It has those seatings with the picnic tables or whatever, but they're not used. As it is, the man that owns it says he has to come out. It's a city property. The sidewalk city property. He's not supposed to be responsible to shovel the snow, but he often does. He takes care of that, and so do the other two businesses, the florist and the pizza parlor, because nobody else will. Because the city doesn't have the services that it used to provide. But that space, that little triangle where Dempsey's is absolutely perfect to have umbrellas with people out there eating and communing from, especially Dempsey's. Or eating a sandwich from a local sub shop down Alfredo's Kitchen or something, get a sub, come down. It's on the same side of the block. You don't have to go out of your own way. Modern Hardware is another huge staple, which has offered many people the convenience and personal touch for home improvement. The laundromats are a staple for the area because of the large rental apartments all throughout the neighborhood. What needs to be said is that Haynes Square has a lot of two-family houses that are now used as rental properties, both up and down are used as rental properties. People live outside of the city, own those houses. It's no longer just owner-occupied like it used to be back in the day. And so you have a high population of people that use the buses and use, you know, different mechanisms. And they also use the dry cleaners and the laundromat. The laundromat there is absolutely essential because a lot of people that live in those rental properties, a lot of owners, don't let them use the basement for washer and dryers, or have sometimes have coin-operated machines in their basement or something, but a lot of renters use the laundromat in Haynes Square. They can walk right down there and use it. So those laundromats need to stay there. The downside of the square is its central focus. As you drive up from Medford Square, which has a liquor store, which used to be the movie theater. Now, I realize that a liquor store is a legal business. It's a legitimate business. It brings in a lot of tax revenue because the taxes on liquor are higher than other goods and services. I understand that. However, as you're coming up that square where Spring Street comes into Route 60, the thing that catches your eye, which used to be a movie theater, is now a liquor store. I'm not against that person that owns it, but if anybody could arrange to have that liquor store move to a place along the side of a bunch of block of stores and not be the central focus, that would make the whole thing different. And also, if you had an eatery inside that theater, if you had an eatery with Wi-Fi, that would be awesome. The whole feel of that liquor store area would change if you had nice glass windows that were open and not filled with signs for Bud Light or whatever. Then, wait a minute, I'm not done yet. Oh, okay, all right. So, because if you look at it, you see Bud Light and whatever. Instead, if you saw people sitting in chairs, you know, using their devices, and I will agree now, I've come to change my mind, I'll even let you put a bike rack in front of that area so that if people are traveling by bicycle, they can go and hang there and have lunch, okay? But anyway, if you change that, you would change the whole feel of that whole region. And I'm not against the liquor store. If you want to put it to the side in another spot, more power to you. But it's a central focal point. And if you put an eatery in there, man, a lunch place, sandwich, soup, something like that, where people have, you know, a lunch thing, because you got the breakfast thing right over there at Dempsey's, it would really be awesome. Let's see. The other big problem is the MBTA bus barns and the brick building that sits in front of it. The brick building was built in like 1922. I realize that there is an electrical infrastructure for the bus barns, and it is a problem, but guess what? It's the MBTA's problem. It's not my problem. It's not Haynes Square's problem. It's not the city's problem. The MBTA buses sit there, and they look horrible, okay? Imagine if that bus barn area was a green space. Hello? I guess I'm transforming. The city's going in my head or something, thinking green. But if that area was green, I've been around you people too long. So if that area was green with some benches, okay, to sit, all right, you buy a sandwich, you go and you sit on a bench with some green space instead of the bus barns, it would be another place that would be open for the community to come and sit. I don't want other buildings put there. God knows we got enough buildings in this city. We keep putting up developments every which way. You get a postage stamp, they put up a building. So if you could take that and turn it into green space, but that's going to take the effort of the state representatives, the state senators, you people, the mayor, the small business community, the Chamber of Commerce. Everybody's going to have to get in on that. But imagine, visualize it. Have some imagination. Let's see. With the help of the state delegation, blah, 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 I would like to see the green space, blah, blah, blah. Now, the MBTA is another problem because we have buses and trucks that often go through there. So if you're going to introduce, God forbid, bike lanes, because I personally think it's an accident waiting to happen, but if you are, you're going to have to decide, are we going to take out parking spaces in order to put a bus lane? I don't know. But whatever you do, you're going to have to involve the MBTA because trucks, huge trucks, go down there to deliver, especially for Modern Hardware. I see trucks all day dropping off stuff for Modern Hardware. And, you know, they're not they're just small. But they are trucks. They're commercial trucks traversing, and buses that traverse all the time. So the MBTA is going to have to be involved if we move a bus stop. I don't know, design it. I don't get paid to do this, but there are people that get paid to design these kind of squares, and if we had some imagination, we could transform that square. Let's see. That's it, okay, wait a minute. What else? Okay, let's see. As for general cleanliness, we used to have section men, or we could use women today, whatever, in the squares, whose sole job was to pick up the litter in the square. Now, I understand that it costs a lot of money, but whether the DPW hires more personnel to become square people, that sounds funny, but square cleaners, I don't know how to say it, but sweepers, part-time, part of their sessions, or maybe one day, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever, or hire senior citizens, I don't care how it gets done, but we need to have people to clean up the litter because there's a lot of litter blown around, and I don't have to tell you people, the lines for the parking spaces are not, they're not there. It's kind of a weird, the way the square is too, if somebody, you kind of like when you come in from Spring Street to Salem, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of, people do their own thing. So, you know, you're like, there could be one lane, but there's 2 or 3 cars stacked, like lined up, you know. So whatever, the traffic people that organized could straighten that out and maybe make the island in the middle bigger and make it so that there's only room for one car to go one way so that you don't see piles up. Or maybe the island could also become bigger for another use. Like when we have our festivals in the fall festival, they use that as the stage prop area for the festival, for where the stage is. So if you expand that little bit, you could have the thing, you know, they use it for some other space. But anyway, okay. So I don't care how you get it done, but we need to have section people to clean up and to paint and to do all of that stuff, to monitor flower pots, water them, whatever, you know, those barrels with the flowers in them, make it nice with the lights, with the hanging pots and all of that. I have a dream. Anyway, so anyway, the signage all looks trashy. There's too many things in the windows in the stores. And if you had the awnings or all of the signage uniform, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. You can have your own personality. But if there's some kind of consistency throughout the signage, that would improve the area. As for parking enforcement, the mayor assigned a committee to review the problem back in 2009. He had ignored the recommendations of that committee, and it has led to chaos. We've talked about that, but I'm going to go over it real quick because I wrote it down. The decision has been made by the mayor to go with an outside private contractor and has been signed for 7 years with 3 more added option. Many of the businesses in Haines Square are not in the Chamber of Commerce and therefore have not had a voice in the matter, not until now, and I understand the chief has talked to some of those business owners, that's wonderful, but I know for a fact that a lot of those business owners don't belong to the Chamber of Commerce, no offense, but they don't. There are inconsistencies in the policy where Dab's Lock is, and he's right. I'm a frequent customer of Artery Lock and will still call them for business, but they do have an advantage over the other businesses in West Medford. If you're going to do parking enforcement, meters, which is my preference, over kiosks or whatever, you have to go all the way down Route 60 because it's really a commercial/retail. You got the gas stations, you got the Brazilian food place, which I'm a frequent customer of. You've got Nappies, you've got Artery Lock. There's a whole bunch of businesses along there. They got the bike shop, there's a bike shop on Route 60. They should be metered as well because that is just as much a commercial/retail place as any other place. And so it's, you know, when Dab's Lock came up here, I was feeling his pain because Artery Lock doesn't have to pay that, doesn't have to have that. With all due respect, people who come from Malden have told me that they haven't stopped at the Dunkin' Donuts in Haines Square because they don't understand the kiosk system. Now, it might be $5, but I want Malden's $5, you know? At the very least, regular coin-operated meters should be put in place for simplicity's sake. And that would be my recommendation, to get rid of the kiosks and go with meters. People see meters and they understand them. Haines Square has a high rental population, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is a sensitive topic, but while I see immigrant groups from South American to Asian have small family-owned businesses in Haines Square, there are not a lot of Black American-owned businesses that I know I would like to see a black-owned barber shop and one other black-owned business go into the square. The population of that area is changing, and it would go a long way to incorporate all the new people. There are a couple of open storefronts currently on the Alfredo's Kitchen block across from the Stop and Shop. And so that would be a great place to put in a barber shop. And so we could reach out through the Chamber of Commerce, you could reach out to Neil, you could reach out to other, people and in the business community, go to places, the schools where they make barbers, where they train barbers, and get somebody and say, hey, can we help you open up a barber shop? And just open up a barber shop, because the area is changing, and we need to change with those times. I'm almost done. In closing, I believe that all the squares should be treated the same. It is no secret that West Medford is on the wealthier side of the city. I know that I just had to say it, and therefore receives more attention. It is, I would say that if we have meters in Haynes Square, we have to have meters in West Medford. I don't want to see kiosks in West Medford and meters in Haynes Square. It might work for Boston, because in Chinatown they have meters, and on Newbury Street they have kiosks, but Medford isn't Boston, so, I just wanted to throw that out there. I know it's controversial, but that's what I do. All right, well, thank you very much.
Gene, don't go away.
Thank you, Gene.
Don't go away.
Maybe you could do Medford Square next week?
Yeah, exactly, thank you.
Councilor Caviello.
Thank you, Madam President. Gene, don't go. Come back.
Yes, yes.
Come back. I agree with you a lot of stuff that's happening there, but we have signed ordinances that aren't followed in Haynes Square. That if some of those signs and stuff, windows got cleaned up, would make a huge difference down there. Now, Jim Silva formed a task force in South Medford. That could be your job. Form a task force for Haynes Square. Similar, talk to Jim Silva, ask his advice on starting a task force.
It's not a bad idea.
You'd be the head of that task force.
Yeah, I'd be good at
Haynes
that.
Square.
That would be right up my alley.
My suggestion to you.
But in the meantime, I want the mayor to look at all of those ideas
Again,
too.
if you form a task force and you got enough people, the mayor will listen to you.
That's right, that's right. That's how you make noise. All right, thank you.
Madam President, thank you very much. Ms. Martin, you said something that really resonated with me, and it's something that I know our representative has been working on very hard for a number of years, and that is the closure of the Salem Street car barn. I think that's very necessary, and it's something that's long overdue. I think the closure of the Salem Street car barn would actually bring an effort and opportunity for us to beautify the area, but more importantly, it'll improve the quality of life for the residents in the neighborhood. I know I've worked, when I was in the legislature with Senator Shannon, with Representative Donato on a number of occasions in making an attempt to get the car barn out of there, but I'm pretty sure, if my memory serves me correctly, that the representative was able to secure some funding in order to perform a study and a plan to relocate the car barns to Wellington Circle. I don't know how far along we are in that process, but what I'll do is reach out to him and I'll let you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Councilor Penta.
Jane, the thing that I appreciate the fact is you put a lot of effort and time into making a presentation of what you thought you believed in, something, but the city has a responsibility too. So this is where I'm going to digress from Councilor Caviello. I don't think you have to go out there and start and do anything. We have a community development office who's yet to even walk these streets here in the city of Medford to find out and knock on the business doors like the mayor, failing to find out what's going on, what's the problem. What do you think would be a better situation here for the city? What would you like to see to be done? So with that being said, I think the city has a big obligation. It's bad enough they're taxing people to death with food tax and sales tax and excise tax and water and sewer tax and real estate tax. And now you have this new crazy, kiosk tax. And now you want the business people to go ahead and create something that the city should be doing themselves. If they want development to take place, if they wanted to be proactive, they'd be out there. Just like Somerville was proactive, just like Winchester's proactive, just like Arlington is proactive, just like Lexington is proactive. We don't have to be those communities, but we can be proactive between and amongst ourselves within our own communities. And a lot of people look at West Medford. You happen to mention it, so I'll mention West Medford. It's a close-knit group of people. They work together. They look out for each other. And it's a type of business where one feeds off of another. They're not Newbury Street. It's just a mom-and-pop type of community within our own city. But all four sections of the city are like that. Medford Square is different. All four sections of the city like that.
And once the city wakes up and decides to figure out that they need to fix potholes, they need to understand that business people need to survive, and they can't keep taxing them to death, especially when you're sitting on almost $15 million of revenue surplus and a water and sewer account and free cash, and now you're trying to tax them to get, again, with this craziness of a kiosk tax. It's wrong. In my opinion, it's wrong. I think the city needs to wake up, and it's obvious that the mayor, listen, if the mayor had any respect for this council and for you, he would have sent somebody, he would have sent something to the president of this council and told them, unfortunately, I'm not going to be here, I'm on vacation, could you please cancel the meeting for another week? But no, he didn't do that. He knew in advance, they knew in advance he wasn't going to be here. It was a wasted night, unfortunately, for all the people that showed up, but hopefully the chief got the message and got the idea that there are still concerns out there that need to be corrected. And I stand by my resolution, and when I introduce it next week, I do not support this, because I do not think it's right for the city. It's not the right step to go in, and I think it should have started with the city taking on the responsibility first before we do anything by bringing in an outside company. Thank you.
President Del Russo.
Thank you, Madam President. Gene, that was a wonderful presentation you made today. And while I thought tonight's meeting was fruitful on the discussions regarding parking, I lament the absence of one. But nonetheless, I think the discussions were helpful, productive, and all the discussions thus far have been so. And we've certainly seen this, this whole parking plan evolve into something really that isn't anybody's, but is now, because there's been so much input and so much change, in a sense, I think it belongs to everyone. That being said, with regards to your ideas and your vision for Haynes Square, I think it's very laudable and a sign of hope within this community, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. You know, there are some people of a particular political bent that think government should do everything for us. I think experience has shown, it's been pointed out to the people behind these rails that they need to pay more attention to history. I think if history has shown us anything, that where we rely on government to do everything for us, we run into problems. Gene, a public-private partnership for the development of anything is what is the ingredients for a success story. Contrary to what some people think, my experience with the Office of Community Development, when you approach them to work on projects, that they end up being very successful because of the expertise and resources that the leadership of that office brings to any endeavor. And if you, in the cooperation with maybe merchants in the square, property owners, members of the Chamber of Commerce, and the people in the Office of Community Development were to engage into some project, I think that would be a tremendous recipe for success. And I know you have the ability to lead and do that.
Thank you very much. And I think the space for that should happen in Haynes Square. I think that the politicians, the mayor and you guys, should all meet at Dempsey's. And I think that the local businesses should also meet at Dempsey's. And or the new lunch place that we're going to build where the liquor store is. But and then you guys can meet, and I'll be there. I'll be happy to be there. And because until you guys come together because of zoning laws or whatever has to be changed, so that they can eat on that little tri-corner or whatever, because it's not being fully utilized. That little tri-corner outside of Dempsey's isn't being fully used. And it would be so awesome to see umbrellas and people hanging out there and relaxing on a June day. Thank you.
Council Penta.
Yeah, Gene, don't go away, because my opinion is going to be a little different than Councilor Del Russo. I wish he mentioned to me my name, because that's all I know he was referring to. But I think government does have a role. I think government has a responsibility. When they tax the people in this community, or in any community, to do something and to be part of the community, they have a responsibility to go out there and work within the community. And when you don't see them, and when you don't hear from them, and when you see businesses closing down one at a time, one at a time, and one at a time in Medford Square, and you still not see city government going out there trying to find out what the problem is, what the reason is, that's the problem. It's government not doing its job. You can do all the job you want to help out, it's commendable, but you still need government to help you out. And if you don't want government to help you out, then you shouldn't even be standing here tonight, because it won't work. It takes two to tango. But before it takes two to tango, we have to remember one thing. Jim Silver and Smartco and South Medford, it was because of those people being persistent, because if the city was doing its job, he wouldn't have had to been persistent. And thankfully, the chief was there on a particular night, and he walked the neighborhood with them to see what was going on. He's an exemplary person as a municipal employee. If all the department heads acted like him, we'd have no problem. You wouldn't even need a mayor, because everybody would be doing their job. The guy goes over and beyond the call of duty. This is not his job, though. His job is to be the chief of police, to make sure our community is safe. He should not have to be the parking commissioner, so to speak, whatever it might be. But unfortunately, the mayor, God bless you, Chief. Why you're doing it, I don't know. I don't think you deserve it, and I just think there's a perfect example of government not being responsible for what they're supposed to be doing. This is the mayor's program. This is the mayor's program, not the chief or the council. This is the mayor's program. And if he wants to go on vacation, for which he's entitled to, then we should have been given the respect that he wasn't going to be here tonight by the people in his office who knew he wasn't going to be here, because everybody that showed up early tonight expected him to be here. And that's the message that went out, and that was the vote of the city council last week. Seven to nothing.
Thank you. Council Marks, point of information. Council Camuso.
I'm sorry. I can appreciate that, and I wish we did get notified, but I certainly understand from a homeowner's standpoint that the mayor probably would want to go on vacation and not have you running around the coffee shops yelling that he's out of town, and so that someone can probably maybe go to his house and burglarize it because he's on vacation. I mean, it's just, like I said, I just find it quite amusing, Madam President.
Council Marks.
Like I said, I can understand, but...
Is that a point of information?
Yes. No. When you go to Florida with your friends, you don't tell people.
Hey. Order.
Nor should you.
Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam President. And I appreciate Gene, and I appreciate your vision. And I think, when it comes to the Office of Community Development, we as a community need to expect more from the Office of Community Development. That's the reason why we have an Office of Community Development. And, they do yeoman's work when it comes to finding grants and rehabbing parks or allocating community block grant money every year. They do a tremendous job. But all you need to do is look at the 5 business districts in this community and wonder why we haven't revitalized one of our business districts in the last 25 years. That's all you need to wonder. And, it's clear to me that the Office of Community Development has fallen far short of the mark and when it comes to redevelopment. This administration has been in charge for 28 years, and I would submit to anyone in this community, Medford Square is no better off now than it was 28 years ago, and I would submit to you that the square was better off 28 years ago than what we have down there currently now. The council voted several months back on Riverside Ave, the transportation little shuttle that we have across from the CVS on Riverside behind the burial ground. We voted to have it looked at for a possible repurpose. Right now it's falling apart, the roof is leaking, it's in deplorable condition, and it's being utilized for next to nothing. And the response back we got from the administration was they'll take it under advisement. These are the type of things that when issues are brought up, that there's no one at City Hall carrying the water. There's no one at City Hall looking into it. And that's the problem that we face. And, until there's a new administration in this city, we're going to see our business districts the way they are, in deplorable condition, in need of updating, in need of new traffic studies, new pedestrian crossings, traffic calming approaches, new facades. The whole issue, and we spoke about Haynes Square, I think it was last week, about the fire that took place at the Lucky Dragon Chinese restaurant. That was over 2 years ago. And it's still boarded up with action signs in the window. That was 2 years ago. How does a community allow an establishment in a business district to stay boarded up like that? I just don't understand. And is there any involvement from the Community Development Office or the Building Commissioner's Office to do something about it? Talk about it, you're talking about the liquor store as a blighted look and area. What about a boarded-up establishment that's been, caught on fire 2 years ago? And this is, I think, what we're seeing across the community, not just Haynes Square, West Medford, the Hillside, and our main anchor, which is Medford Square. And the mayor has commissioned 3 separate reports to revitalize Medford Square, has spent several $100,000 to come out with a plan to revitalize Medford Square, and has done nothing. And that's over a 25-year process. So I guess when we talk about parking enforcement taking 5 years, in the mayor's vision, that's pretty quick, because the revitalization of Medford Square is still ongoing after 25 years. In the police department after 50-something years, Chief, which we won't call you up to the podium. In the library, 50-something years. So I guess it's par for the course how we're working, and I agree. I don't think it should be done by a citizen advisory board. It should be done by the people that we're paying their salary, hefty salaries, and that's what should take place in this community. And the mayor needs to put an emphasis on the Office of Community Development. In Somerville, their staff is probably 7 times larger than our staff. We have 1 full-time person who's the director, 1 part-time person, and there may be someone else answering the phones in the office. That's our Office of Community Development. I don't know what you're going to get out of them, other than what we're already getting, which is just the minimal day-to-day, keep the office going, but no improvements to our infrastructure or any thought of revitalization. But I appreciate your thoughts, Jean.
Thank you.
Councilor Caviello.
Thank you, Madam President. Jean, Councilor Pence's right. Persistence pays off. Again, I know you won't take it, but that's sometimes the ground effort from the citizens that will get people motivated and going in this building. You talked about the people, the little square there. All that restaurant has to do is apply to the Board of Health for a permit, and they could put the tables and umbrellas out there. A year and a half ago, I brought in Harvard University into the city, and they come up with 20 low-cost ideas to enhance the city, and we didn't take them up on not one of them.
See, that's a shame.
They were over here, they were on display for a month, and I say the students spent 3 months here picking out places to clean with all things that were low cost, because their project was they had to keep it within a budget, and we didn't take not one of the suggestions when we had one of the number 1 landscape architects in the world in this building, and we took no suggestions from them.
Councilor Della Russo.
Madam President, motion that this presentation be forwarded to the mayor for a response.
What type of, that he review, that he review Haynes Square redevelopment?
Yes.
Councilor Marks.
Maybe if we can ask the mayor more of a poignant question of what are his plans to revitalize our 5 business districts, because you can only be told so many times about a plan that was drafted 20 years ago. Right.
Doing a water taxing.
You can only be told so many times about that outdated plan until people realize and unmask the masquerade that's going on, that nothing is happening in this city. So that would be my recommendation.
Motion for approval by Councilor Della Russo. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. Offered by Councilor Caviello. Please discuss the after-hour and weekend truck problems on Auburn Street.
Chief, if you can, that's why I asked yesterday, if you can talk about this for a second. Chief, over the last couple of months, the traffic on Auburn Street, especially on the weekends and after hours, with the 18-wheelers going down there, is kind of increasing an awful lot. Do we have any set hours when those trucks should be going down there? I mean, they're going down to Saturday and Sunday nights at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night to make deliveries on the Whole Foods.
That's somewhat an age-old problem. I have heard that it's increased over the past couple of months. One of the issues there is that that street probably should definitely be a no heavy trucking street.
Well, I know they can't get on. I mean, I don't know how far they can get on the Parkway, but again, they're coming down there at. Listen, it's bad enough they come down there during the week when the school going here, but to come down there on a Saturday night and Sunday night at 11 o'clock.
It's just a question of where they're going to, and my assumption is Whole Foods.
They're going to Whole Foods
because there's no place else they could go.
Yeah.
we'll speak with the management at Whole Foods. I know that at one point in time, we did have it rerouted, and trucks would have to go into West Medford Square or make a turn on Canal Street, but it was probably more likely that they'd have to go to Harvard Avenue and back onto Boston Avenue, but then they couldn't clear the bridge on the Parkway, that bridge by U-Haul. That was a problem, but I know that it has been a problem. Avon Street's just that it really should not be a truck road.
Is it possible to set some hours when they can't go down their way? I mean, it's not fair to those people. Listen, it's bad enough they have to come down there during the week, but, they shouldn't be coming down there on Saturday and Sunday nights.
Well, I think the first step would be to talk with the people at Whole Foods and find out why they may be getting deliveries or why trucks would be leaving their establishment on those nights at those hours. I'm sure that they could arrange for the deliveries to go at a different time. And I've always been told by MDC before the DCR that trucks could travel as long as it's basically a block or two, to the location. They could travel on that parkway. But they really, as they come out of Auburn Street, they're not supposed to be making that turn onto, if they come out of Auburn Street by Whole Foods,
they're coming from High Street, going down Auburn Street to go. That's where they're coming from. They're not coming across. But I mean, they might be coming that way too. But if you could speak with the manager there and report back to us,
yes,
some type of solution, because I say those people, it's bad enough they come down during the week, but to come down on Saturday and Sunday nights, it's kind of pushing the envelope there.
Okay, I'll check with them.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. On the motion of Councilor Cavaliello for approval and forwarding to the police chief, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. Papers in hand to the clerk, offered by Councilor Marks. Be it resolved that the Community Mitigation Fund under the Gaming Act be discussed. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was brought to my attention recently by a Medford resident that the Gaming Act, which we're all aware of, which was the creating legislation to create casinos in this community, as part of that, there was a community mitigation fund that was established. And this was to offset costs related to gaming for communities and surrounding communities. There is a one-time, and this is why I wanted to bring it up tonight, there's a one-time 2015 reserve that's allocated to surrounding communities, of which we are named right within the one-time policy that was put out as being one of the surrounding communities. And it states, if I could read it, Mr. President, because there's a time frame that's associated with this. It says, in recognition that communities may not be able to demonstrate many significant impacts by February 2nd, 2015, and in recognition of the Commission's emphasis on proper local planning, the Commission has established a one-time local reserve for the 2015 Community Mitigation Fund Program. The Commission has reserved $100,000 for each designated surrounding community, each community which entered into the nearby community agreement with a license, and any community that petitioned to be a surrounding community to a gaming license, which we are one of them, Mr. President. This reserve can be used to cover impacts that may arise in 2015 or thereafter. It may also be used for planning, either to determine how to achieve further benefits from a facility or to avoid or minimize any adverse impacts. We've all spoken, Mr. President, about the need for infrastructure improvements in Wellington Circle. The deadline to apply for this is February 2nd. I want to send a response from this council to the administration to, first of all, to see if the administration has applied for this, where the deadline is approaching. If not, that they apply immediately, and that also this council go on record. I believe the number one concern is the traffic impact from what I've heard from residents and also from living in the Wellington area, and what can be done to improve some of the potential congestion in the Wellington area, which we all know will be one of the main major thoroughfares to the Wynn Casino when it eventually comes.
If I may, from the chair, point out that there's been a long-standing flooding problem on Middlesex Avenue at the intersections of 1st and 2nd Street, and beyond. I'm wondering if this money could be used to mitigate those drainage inefficiencies as well.
That's a great suggestion. And but I think we should go on record at least asking the administration if they've applied before the February 2nd deadline, and also what are the thoughts of the use of the $100,000. And I would say transportation, flooding issues in the general area, I think is a worthy suggestion. Also, recently, our own Councilor Rick Caviello was named to the Community Mitigation Committee by the mayor, and he will sit on this committee as one person from this community and be fighting for mitigation money to improve infrastructure and other economic engines in our community to help with the potential loss that a casino may bring into the local economy. And, you know, Councilor Caviello, with his background in the chamber and his background in the community, I think was the perfect fit for this particular position. But I would like to put that in the form of a resolution on the actual 2015 reserve money, $100,000 that is earmarked to surrounding communities in which we were named.
Each.
Right, correct, each.
Thank you. So on the motion of Councilor Marks, as he has explained, Mr. Clerk, Councilor Caraviello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Marks, for that. I have tried, with the mayor being away, I don't know if we've applied for that $100,000 grant that's out there. Once he gets back, I've tried to get a hold of him, but once he gets back, I'll find out. But as it was explained to me, there's also going to be other pools of money that are going to be available for all the cities in town. Now, for people who don't understand, this is not just the Wynn Casino. This is all the casinos in the whole state that are going to be coming out of this pool. So I'll hope to address the issues that this community faces going forward, and hopefully some funds will be coming this way, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Caraviello, and the community can trust in your abilities. Thank you. On the motion, Councilor Penta.
Yeah, it's interesting because this Medford City Council was in the forefront of wanting to be a surrounding community contender right from the beginning. And I think there is maybe 5 to 6 resolutions that were offered on there, myself included, along with Councilor Longo-Curran, as it related to getting ourselves on there. And the interesting part about all of this, I think we sent resolutions to the Mass Gaming Commission, and I believe we also sent one to the Commonwealth of Mass. I think it was the Attorney General's office that needed where it needed to go there. Bottom line to all of that is we had asked the mayor on numerous occasions to be part of the surrounding community application. Not only did he ignore us, but he also went forward and did whatever he did to subsequently reach, I think it was $250,000 in monies thus far from the Wynn Casino group of people who made the application to the Mass Gaming Commission. Putting all of that aside, we now have a situation, we have, and I don't know if this is called mitigation money, I don't know what the proper terminology is, but if we have the ability to have $100,000 come to us, whether it be for use for the Wellington area, whether it's the First Street, whether it's for flooding, once again, I'd like to amend the motion that the mayor consult with the council as it relates for the purposes of using this money. There's no sense in you being on the committee, Rick, that the mayor just appointed you to, if the money is going to wind up going for whatever he wants to do it. All you're going to be doing is a conduit to bring the money into the city. You know, and again, it's another example. If the mayor doesn't want to participate with the council in our request, then it's for naught. We're just giving him carte blanche to do whatever he wants whenever he gets this money. But
point of information, Councilor Caraviello.
The money that will be asked for will be for a specific thing. It won't just be, here's a check and run with it.
We'll make the specific thing for the Wellington neighborhood, whether it's for the Rotary intersection or to decrease the water.
There's multiple issues.
Well, the multiple issues got to come from the council.
Right, but there are multiple issues for mitigation money, not just Wellington, but...
We're talking about this $100,000.
Right.
Okay? What do you want it to do? Councilor Marks, you brought it up. What is your suggestion?
I'm sorry, Councilor. Well, Councilor, you have the chair.
I'm asking him a question.
So through the chair to Councilor Marks.
Right.
My suggestion, as I stated, is to look at infrastructure improvements, i.e. transportation improvements
in Wellington,
in the Wellington area. because I think that's going to be the biggest impact, and that's what I've heard from residents and business owners and so forth. And there will be some other impact to the local economy, the businesses in that area, but I think this should be one of the first priorities.
So on the motion of Councilor Marks as amended by Councilor Penta, that the mayor consult the city council before making any expenditure of grant monies given as mitigation under the Casino Act. Councilor Caraviello?
I have not had the opportunity to attend a meeting yet, so once I've gone to a meeting, I can inform this council on what lies ahead.
February 2nd is right around the corner.
Well, if the mayor's not here, I can't.
Well, the council resolution go forward as amended.
So like I said, I will report back to the council on what lies ahead and what type of funds are available.
Thank you, councilors. And Councilor Knight wishes to speak on the matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Councilor Marks brings up a good point about the impact that a gaming facility is going to have on our transportation infrastructure here in the city of Medford. And then we're sitting here talking about some grant funds that are available to us and what to do with them. And I think it might make sense for us to maybe look at hiring a full-time transportation planner, someone that can look at the issues that are affecting our city, can determine what's going on, what impact they're having, and what direction we need to go. But someone that's a professional, not someone that we're going to give $100,000 to do a study, to give us the study back and then disappear, but someone that's going to be on staff, or someone maybe that we can work with regionally, with our neighbors in Malden and Everett, who are also going to be impacted at Wellington Circle by the, well, maybe not so much Everett, because they're going to have panacea money coming in from Wind Management, but Malden, to help us out and maybe approach this issue regionally, so that we can pool our resources and that we can get more bang for our buck.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. Councilor Penta?
Point of information, Councilor Knight brings up an interesting point, but the city some years ago did apply for that. And they put a request in the budget, I think it was almost $80,000, $90,000 at one time for the purposes of having a transportation, I won't use the word consultant, a transportation person upstairs. And I think we got the idea because of what Somerville was doing. And at that point in time, I believe Somerville had 14 people in their Office of Community Development, and how they were getting so efficient is they hired an outside professional person to be their transportation consultant. I think that's one of the people that made the takeoff of the piece of property over there. I've got no problem supporting in that, but these are all, I think, budgetary issues, because if you take that money from the $100,000, you've got to keep that position going each and every year. So I like the idea of bringing it up again, but I think it's just, I think it's just something that this whole budget has to be looked at as to where we're going. Each and every year we wind up in the last 4 years with $1 million surplus. So we know that there is money there to hire additional people. The school committee just got an additional $2.5 million this year, and they've hired many more administrators, more than we've able to do on this side of the street. So something's got to make the turn that gets to where you're talking about, Councilor Knight, what Councilor Marks is talking about, where this city should be moving forward. Everybody's moving forward around us, and all we're doing is just staying still and becoming stagnant, and that's wrong. It shouldn't be that way. We're not a poor city. We are financially endowed right now. We have good money, and we should be investing it in good projects, not just keep increasing, taxing the people, and just keeping the coffers and just filling them up and filling them up. It just doesn't work that way. And our best example is our sister city. Just look at Somerville. Years ago, people I wouldn't want to move to Somerville. Now, you can't even get into Somerville. You can't even touch the real estate in Somerville. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. On the motion of Councilor Marks, amended by Councilor Penta and Councilor Knight, all those in favor? Roll call has been requested. Mr. Clerk?
Councilor Camuso? Councilor Caraviello?
Yes.
Councilor Knight?
Yes.
Vice President Longo Kern?
Yes.
Councilor Marks?
Yes.
Councilor Penta?
Yes.
President Del Russo?
Yes. On the vote of 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, the motion passes. The records of the tabled records of the December 16th, 2014 meeting were passed to Councilor Knight for review. Councilor, how did you find those records?
Move for approval, Mr. President.
Motion to approve by Councilor Marks. Knight, all those in favor, all those opposed? Records accepted. Records of January 13th, 2015 passed to Councilor Penta. Councilor, how did you find those records?
Accepted.
Motion to accept? Yep. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion, before we adjourn, Councilor Marks will briefly address the council.
Just one brief thing, Mr. President. I had the opportunity to attend the Martin Luther King third annual event, which was held yesterday at the West Medford Community Center. There had to be close to 100 people that attended. Part of the program dealt with Medford High students along with their teacher, whose name escapes me right now, students that shared very touching stories of intolerance. And there was roughly 13 students, and it was a real eye-opener, Mr. President, which really played in part of what took part in the whole civil rights process with Martin Luther King and so forth. And it was a great event. I know Councilor Caviello was there, and John Falco from the school committee. And I look forward to next year's event. And I want to personally thank each and every student that came up there to share such a personal story, some of which you may want to keep secret, but these students were willing to get up there and show that what their experience has been and how they are improving, and also how the city of Medford, in many circumstances, has united around these particular students to include them. And it was very touching. Again, I look forward to attending the event next year again, Mr. President.
Motion to receive and place and file by Councilor Marks. All those in favor? All those opposed? On the motion to adjourn by Councilor Penta. All those in favor? All those opposed? Meeting adjourned.